Chapter 36. Seeing the princess of Chu Yun and her entourage, Di Shirtian understood that the hidden danger after letting these people escape had finally erupted. It was just as he had thought. If one person could not win, he would immediately bring more people and stronger people over. Although he had been mentally prepared for this. However, when he really experienced it, his heart was cold as steel. Although he was a human in his previous life, he was a demon in this life. He was destined to stand on the opposite side of humans, and there was no possibility of peaceful coexistence. When they met, there was only one word: kill. He could not show mercy. If he wanted to fight, he had to kill. Completely exterminate. Otherwise, it would bring about an even greater crisis like today. This also strengthened his resolve. It was fine if he did not make a move, but if he did, he would consign the other party to eternal damnation. The demon aura outside his body was like the spiritual energy protection of immortal cultivators and the true calm protection of martial artists. It had extremely strong defensive power. When he saw Li Xianqun stunned for a moment by his power, he realized that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If he grasped this opportunity, he could kill one of these immortal cultivators in one fell swoop. Therefore, when he faced the long iron vine that swept towards him, he gritted his teeth and did not pay attention to it immediately. Instead, he strengthened the demon aura outside his body and protected his entire body. He was determined to kill Li Xianqun in one fell swoop. Bang! The iron vine glowed with a dark light. Like a long whip, it lashed heavily at Di Shirtian's waist. However, it did not really land on his body. It was blocked by the layer of black demon aura outside his body. However, the power contained in the vine also whipped the demon aura violently, showing signs of dissipating. Fine! The princess of Chu Yun was also alert. When she saw that the demon aura was not blown away, she immediately changed the spell. The originally straight vine immediately coiled around Di Shirtian's waist like a spirit snake. Moreover, it coiled tighter and tighter. The force of the contraction caused the demon aura outside his body to begin to fluctuate violently. It was as if it could be destroyed at any moment. However, Sakura didn't care about this. Although his body was bound by the rattan, the strength of his pounce was incomparably ferocious. Just relying on the strength of the iron rattan alone, it wasn't enough to bind him. A pitch-black tiger claw carried a sharp aura, faintly emitting a pitch-black luster. It appeared above Li Xianqun's head. If this claw landed, Li Xianqun's head would immediately be smashed into mush. He was about to die in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Di Shirtian's might was unparalleled. The domineering aura of the king of beasts enveloped the world. Evil creature, you dare. Just as Li Xianqun was about to lose his life under the tiger claw, a loud roar suddenly came from the forest. That voice was filled with a kind of shocking anger. A powerful aura followed the voice and swept through the empty area where the fierce battle was taking place. A fiery red, flowing light broke through the air and instantly appeared in front of the tiger claw that Sakura was about to land on Li Xianqun's head. Bang! That red light came too fast. Sakura didn't even have time to see it clearly before it collided with it. This contact made him shocked in his heart because he felt that his tiger claw seemed to have landed on a piece of iron that was already branded red. Not only did it not shatter it, but he also felt that there was a flame coming out from the object in front of him, burning his tiger claw. Humph! No matter who it is, no one can stop me from killing today. Di Shirtian was not discouraged by the obstruction. Instead, his eyes became colder and colder. The tiger claw in front of him was blocked, but the other tiger claw did not hesitate. In an instant, a pitch-black shadow flashed in front of Li Xianqun's neck. Pooh! With a crisp sound, Li Xianqun's head was instantly thrown away like a rubber ball. It fell to the ground with a thud and rolled a few times. From his wide-open eyes, one could see the horror in them. A pillar of blood spurted out from his neck. It was extremely high. Bang! The stiff and headless corpse fell straight to the ground. Li Xianqun was a cultivator, but he was merely a cultivator at the 7th stage of qi refining. He had not even reached the late stage of chi refining, let alone condense a nascent soul. Once the body was destroyed, it was the same as death. No one could live on after losing their head, unless they were old monsters who had reached the nascent soul stage. Only then would they be able to leave their body with their nascent soul and be reborn through possession. Unfortunately, Li Xianqun was clearly not a nascent soul stage cultivator. With a wave of his tiger claw, he died on the spot. "Ah, how dare you kill Xianqun? I want your life." Two sorrowful and angry roars soared into the sky. Looking in the direction of the roars, they saw two middle-aged men flying through the air at high speed. Seeing the scene of Li Xianqun's death, he felt as if his liver and guts were being torn apart, and his eyes were wide open in anger. Forming a seal with their hands, a green light flew out from one of their hands. It turned into a stream of light and bombarded Di Shirtian. At the same time, the red light that collided with the tiger claw quickly flew up and slashed at Di Shirtian's neck. Roar! Di Shirtian did not relax in the slightest after killing Li Xianqun. When he heard the two voices, he already knew that two cultivators much stronger than him had appeared. If he was not mistaken, they should be cultivators of the foundation building stage. Looking closely, the green light wrapped around a green wooden ruler. Talismans flickered in the wooden ruler. The ruler swung down at Li Xianqun's head. The red light wrapped around a 3 to 4 inch long crimson dagger. It was the most common magic weapon in the hands of cultivators. It was a fire tribute flying dagger. Red flames that were several inches long shot out. The blazing heat caused the surrounding area to become scorching hot. If this dagger were to hit Li Xianqun's neck, it would be no laughing matter. Swish! In this split second, Sakura didn't pay attention to the green ruler and flying sword that were about to bombard him. Instead, he raised his tiger claw and poured his demon power into it before waving it downwards. In an instant, a sharp claw mark flashed in midair and landed on the iron vine that was binding him. The tiger claw contained demonic power. With the infusion of demonic power, the tiger claw became even more invincible. Although encountered quite a number of obstructions, it was still able to break apart the thick iron vine with a single claw. After escaping from the binding of the vines, he finally landed on the ground. However, after landing, Di Shirtian's pair of tiger-like eyes became even sharper and colder. The two attacks came too quickly and didn't give him much time. One attacked his head, and the other was even fiercer and wanted to chop off his head. At this moment, between the two attacks, he could only resist one of them. The remaining one would definitely fall on his body. Ayo! Almost without thinking, it let out a low and domineering tiger roar. It raised a tiger claw with lightning speed and clawed at the scarlet flying sword that was slashing towards it. The powerful demonic power directly left the tiger claw and formed a pitch-black tiger claw in the air that was completely composed of demonic power. Faintly emitting a black demon aura, it quickly met the flying dagger. At the same time, the tiger claw also followed closely behind. Bang! The tiger claw formed by demon power bombarded the flying dagger in the air. Suddenly, it could be seen that the red light in the flying dagger burst out and bombarded the tiger claw. It only lasted for a few breaths, and the sharp sword light shattered the tiger claw. The flying dagger did not stop and collided with Di Shirtian's tiger claw again. Dang! Sakura's physical body was constantly changing. During this period of time, under the nourishment of demonic energy, it was almost constantly strengthening. Even if ordinary swords and sabers were to cut his body, they wouldn't be able to cut the slightest bit of his skin. Now, with the infusion of demonic energy, the tiger claws were as tough as iron and stone, emitting a dark light. When the two collided, it actually gave off a clear sound of metal and stone colliding. The sharp sword light was unable to break the tiger claw. Bang! However, at this moment, the green wooden ruler above his head abruptly slapped on the head of the Sakura. The demon aura outside his body rolled violently. In the wooden ruler, the green light burst out and broke the demon aura defense in one fell swoop, heavily smashing the head. Ayo! D-Shirton only felt his head sink, as if he was struck by lightning. The power contained in the green ruler smashed D-Shirton 3 feet away on the spot. Bastard, you killed my nephew. Today, I will skin you alive and pull out your tendons. An angry roar came from the mouth of the older middle-aged man. Anger rushed to his head. These two people were Li Xiangxin's two elders. Originally, they followed behind and didn't pay too much attention to it. They also thought that it was just a little spiritual beast, and even if they couldn't take it down, there wouldn't be too much danger. Who would have thought that Sakura was actually so fierce? Once he made a move, it was simply like a thunderbolt. They did not have time to stop him. In the blink of an eye, he killed Li Xiangxin in front of their eyes. Great humiliation! Great humiliation! Anger, incomparable anger. At this moment, they did not care about anything else. They directly launched a fierce attack on the black tiger, wanting to thoroughly kill it. Seeing that D-Shirtion was able to block their attack, how could they let go? With a thought, the green ruler and flying sword once again bombarded D-Shirtion with lightning speed. This is the power of a Foundation Establishment Master. What a domineering power. If not for my physical body, who knows how many times stronger than before, I would have been directly smashed to death by that ruler. No, I cannot fight with him like this anymore. My attack methods are too few. There is no way I can deal with such a strong master. Only the sound wave of the tiger's roar can reverse the situation. D-Shirtion was hit by the terrible bombardment and rolled several feet away, but he did not faint. He quickly stood up, shook his somewhat dizzy head, and recovered his clarity. His mind turned a little, and he understood that fighting with a Foundation Establishment Master was not something he could deal with at the moment. Without any hesitation, he launched his strongest attack. Chapter 37. Whoosh! D-Shirtion's eyes were filled with endless coldness. He took a deep breath, and in an instant, his body expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, he had doubled in size. His entire body exuded an extremely dense tiger aura. The majestic aura of the king of beasts soared into the sky and spread out in all directions like a tidal wave, completely enveloping the entire area. The purple king pattern on his forehead was like a blazing flame, dancing wildly and lifelike. It looked as if it would fly out of his body at any time. An intimidating force was spewing out from the king pattern. Oh no, Black Tiger is going to use that domineering tiger roar technique again. Senior Brother Zheng, Big Brother Qin, quickly seal off your six senses. I will use the pearl to support the defensive light shield. Otherwise, we will be killed by this tiger roar. Seeing the sudden change in Black Tiger, the princess of Chu Yun's face instantly turned pale. She recalled the domineering tiger roar that she had experienced a few days ago and knew what it meant. She quickly warned them. At the same time, she took out the strange green pearl. Her jade-like hands quickly formed a strange seal and struck it into the pearl. Suddenly, the pearl trembled and burst out with a layer of green light shield. It flew above the princess of Chu Yun's head and covered Zheng Baichuan and the others under the light shield. Zheng Baichuan and the others had also experienced the situation at that time. Their expressions changed, and they quickly approached the princess of Chu Yun. As soon as they entered the light shield, they saw that the situation outside had changed. Roar! All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in the blink of an eye. D-Shirtion took a deep breath, and the demonic power in his body circulated rapidly. He roared into the sky, and a domineering tiger roar that shook the sky came out of his mouth. Bang, bang, bang! This tiger roar was all-pervasive, and its power was immeasurable. The surrounding trees exploded in the loud tiger roar, and the ground under their feet shook violently. A fierce gale rose as circles of pitch-black sound waves spread out in all directions like tidewater. The space was like the sea, and the sound waves were like the waves on the sea. One wave after another appeared as if it was real. What kind of sound wave is this? It's so domineering. My head. When the tiger roared, the two middle-aged men who were standing in the air were not prepared for it. They only felt as if a huge thunderbolt had suddenly exploded in their minds. In their minds, there was a buzzing sound. Their minds trembled violently, and they had a splitting headache. How could they still stand in the air? Their bodies swayed and fell down. This was the overbearing and terrifying aspect of the sound wave technique. It was simply all-pervasive. Not to mention, they were completely unguarded. They were directly hit by it. But before the green ruler and flying sword even hit Sakura's body, they collided with the sound waves that seemed to have substance. Rings of sound waves collided with them and immediately produced a terrifying power, bombarding the two magic weapons again and again. However, the green ruler and flying sword were the furious attacks of two Foundation establishment experts and contained a valiant power. Although the sound waves would weaken the power of the magic treasures with every inch they penetrated, they still attacked D. Shirtion with unwavering determination. However, the sound waves covered the sky, passed through the two magic treasures, and quickly rushed toward the two middle-aged men who had been shaken down. If they were hit by the sound waves, even if they were in the Foundation establishment realm, their bodies would be shattered in an instant. Vajra Talisman, Earth Shield Talisman. Although their minds were shaken by the domineering tiger roar, their rich combat experience allowed them to immediately sense the impending danger. They quickly took out a few talismans and slapped them on their bodies. Swoosh! They saw it immediately. Their bodies suddenly shone with golden light, as if they had turned into golden arhats. In front of them, several thick yellow shields appeared. Bang, bang, bang. By the time they finished doing that, the sound waves had already arrived. Rings of pitch-black sound waves bombarded the earth shields unceasingly. In an instant, those earth shields were actually shattered by the sound waves. The sound waves continued on without end. Like a tide, they enveloped the two of them. The pitch-black sound waves constantly bombarded the golden light outside the two men's bodies. Under the domineering sound waves of the tiger roar, the golden light outside the two men's bodies shook violently. It trembled as if it would be destroyed at any time. Roar! On the other side, the green ruler and flying sword had already arrived in front of D. Shirtion. The tiger roar could not be stopped. D. Shirtion looked coldly at the two magic treasures and quickly tilted his head to the side. Suddenly, the green ruler hit the tiger's back heavily. His body swayed, and the flying sword that was going to pierce his throat was blocked by his front leg. Bang! Puff! In the dull roar, D. Shirtion's body sank, and a stream of bright red blood flowed out of the tiger's mouth. The sword was quite sharp, and it broke through the defense of his body. Even his strong body could not resist it, and the sword stabbed into his left front leg. Roar! The injured D. Shirtion not only did not stop the tiger roar, but there was a trace of madness in his eyes. The tiger roar became more powerful and domineering. I can't give up. If I give up today, I will die. I don't want to die, so I must kill these people in front of me. The sound waves could not be stopped. They must all be shaken to death. Bang, bang, bang. Circles of pitch-black sound waves, like a tide, surged and attacked every one wave after wave. With a few crisp cracking sounds, the golden light outside the two middle-aged men finally could not withstand the attack of the sound waves and shattered. The powerful sound waves broke the golden light and directly bombarded the two men. Puff! Puff! Let's go. This black tiger is going to turn into a demon beast. The sound waves of the tiger roar are too domineering, and we don't have any Dharma artifacts to restrain them. Let's go back to the family and find someone. Both of them spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. There were some small pieces of their internal organs mixed in the blood. Their bodies felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Looking at the endless sound waves that covered the sky and covered the earth, horror appeared on their faces. With determination in their eyes, they turned around and fled without thinking, not staying for a moment. They did not even care about the Dharma artifacts they used to attack. They fled as fast as they could. Let's go quickly too. When the Princess of Chu Yun saw that the two Foundation establishment cultivators were about to be defeated by the overwhelming sound waves, her expression changed drastically. She hurriedly shouted and slapped a divine travel talisman on her body, wanting to escape like last time. Roar! Where are you going? A cold light flashed in Sakura's eyes. How had he let these people escape again? With a roar, he didn't care that he had already suffered a heavy injury. His two legs fiercely kicked at the back, and his huge body soared into the sky. A series of afterimages were left behind. The huge tiger claw landed on the green light screen. Bang! The green light screen trembled violently under the claw, and endless sound waves crashed around it. Suddenly, the light screen dimmed, and it looked like it would be destroyed at any time. Explode! At this moment, the Princess of Chu Yun showed an astonishing calmness. She decisively formed a seal and shouted. Suddenly, a shocking spiritual light burst out from the green pearl, and a huge amount of power gushed out from the pearl. With a loud boom, it directly exploded. Roar! The pearl exploded, and a ball of green light emerged. At an unbelievable speed, it hit Di Shirtian heavily. The terrifying power sent Di Shirtian's huge body flying out on the spot. Run! Princess Chu Yun did not even think about it. She pulled the maidservant behind her, and her petite body ran out of the mountain range at lightning speed. Zheng Baichuan and Qin Hai also wanted to escape. Zheng Baichuan was an immortal cultivator, so he could activate the divine travel talisman faster. However, just as Qin Hai was about to activate it, a gust of wind came from behind. The hair on his back stood up, and his face turned pale. Puff! A pitch-black tiger claw pierced through his chest from behind. Blood spurted out from the huge hole. His running footsteps came to an abrupt halt. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he collapsed to the ground. Blood stained the ground. It was the moment when Sakura was sent flying. He used his demon power to condense a tiger claw. With a thunderous momentum, he instantly killed another person. Bang! Di Shirtian landed heavily on the ground, and blood spurted out of his mouth like an arrow. Under the terrifying impact of the pearl's explosion, he was severely injured. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, he became much more dispirited. He could feel intense pain all over his body. This series of battles could be said to have happened in the blink of an eye. Life and death were determined in the blink of an eye. Facing the immortal cultivator's attacks, he relied on the overbearing and powerful sound waves of the tiger's roar to fight with the immortal cultivators until both sides suffered. It was tragic. Roar! Immortal cultivators were indeed not simple. Two Foundation establishment cultivators. If not for my strong physical body and my demonic power breaking through to the third level, I would have been the one to die. Roar! With a low roar, he opened his mouth and pulled out the flying sword that was still stuck in his leg. Looking at the two cold corpses on the ground, his sharp gaze fell on the waist of the immortal cultivator named Li Xiangchen. A small yellow bag appeared in front of him. Seeing it, Di Shirtian's eyes burst out a ball of light. That bag should be the storage bag of the immortal cultivators. He had seen those immortal cultivators take out things from the bag several times. With his wisdom, how could he not guess that the bag should be the storage bag that he had heard of in his previous life that could store a large number of items? This was the most practical treasure. Struggling to stand up from the ground, he quickly came to the corpse and bit off the bag from the corpse's waist. Then he found the flying sword and the green ruler. Together, he wrapped them in a piece of clothing. Chapter 38. My King. Just when Sakura was wrapping up all those things that he thought were useful in a piece of clothing, Wolf King Baiyu scuttled out from the side and quickly came to his front, respectfully with a kind of boundless reverence. It wasn't that he didn't see the intense battle from before, but he couldn't intervene at all. If he had gone in, he would have been killed instantly. Therefore, even though he was anxious, he could only hide at the side and watch the battle in front of him. Seeing his king's valiant strength in the midst of battle, at the same time, he was filled with reverence. At the same time, he was also filled with a thirst for power. He was also looking forward to the day when he would possess such great power and be able to help his king. It would not be like now, where he could only watch and do nothing. By you, those cultivators fought with me just now. There's still a few powerful ones that I didn't kill. After they escaped, they will definitely call for more powerful cultivators. There will be great danger in Tiger Hill mountain range soon. Hurry back to your wolf clan and inform your people to prepare for migration. Tomorrow when the sun rises, it will be the day of migration. Sakura took a deep breath. There was only less than half of the demon power left in his body. The previous fierce battle, although it was only a short moment, it consumed a huge amount of demon power. The tiger roar sound wave, using demon power to condense the tiger claw, all of these required a huge amount of demon power. If it wasn't for the fact that he had completely connected all the meridians in his body, he would have collapsed to the ground and would never be able to get up again. Yes, my king. The Wolf King by Yu's eyes flashed, and he agreed without hesitation. Since he had already submitted to Di Shirtian, he had to follow his orders. Animals were often more loyal than humans. Send your people to the Snake Valley and inform the Monkey King Yuan Tian and the Eagle King Inkong. Tell them to prepare everything by tomorrow. Di Shirtian quickly ordered. The Wolf King listened attentively and nodded. Hiss! At this time, in the mountain stream, in the midst of a huge roar, a huge white python was coiled at the entrance of the mountain stream. In its two big eyes, there was a trace of complicated expression, and its gaze towards Sakura had a trace of obvious reverence. She had seen the battle with her own eyes. She knew very well that if Di Shirtian had used such strength to fight with her, she would have been killed in a few moves. This was absolute strength. White Python, are you willing to submit to me? If you don't, I won't force you. When Sakura heard the noise, he turned his head around and looked at the huge body of the white python. At this time, although he still had the strength to subdue her, but at this time, he was already severely injured. If he didn't hurry back to recuperate and recover, it would affect his own injuries and make them worse. King, I am willing to submit. The white python was silent for a while, and then unexpectedly, she lowered her head towards Di Shirtian. She said that she was submitting to him. She thought to herself, following a king like him will definitely be more interesting than staying in this mountain stream. Maybe I will be as powerful as a king in the future. After witnessing Di Shirtian's ability, the white python's desire for power unconsciously emerged. He was also very clear that he was definitely not Di Shirtian's opponent. Perhaps this time submission would bring him a different kind of life. Di Shirtian's eyes flashed. He guessed that the white python must have seen his previous battle. That was why she submitted so easily. However, he didn't have much time to think about other things. Seeing that he had achieved his goal, he didn't think too much about it. He nodded and said, White Python, since you have decided to submit to me, I will not treat you unfairly. I will now bestow you a name. He paused and looked at the white python. You are white all over, and you have the characteristics of a mother. Why don't you be called by Susu? Susu, by Susu. Hearing that, the white python mumbled a few times. Her eyes were filled with joy. She kowtowed 3 times on the ground and said, Thank you, my king, for bestowing this subordinate with a name. From today onwards, I will have a name too. I will be called by Susu. Judging from her tone, she was very satisfied with the name. Since that is the case, by Susu, as my subordinate, you will have to obey my orders. Gather your tribe immediately. Tomorrow, you will go with the bald eagle king to the center of the mountain range. There will be people from the moon worship tribe who will bring you there. You cannot stay in Tiger Hill mountain range any longer. It will be dangerous if you do. Yes, my king. Like the other kings, by Susu didn't object. With their abilities, even if they left Tiger Hill mountain range and moved to other places, they could still live a good life. She saw the power of that cultivator clearly. If she stayed here, she would be in trouble sooner or later. Di Shirtian's suggestion could be said to be exactly what she wanted. Seeing that even by Susu had submitted to him, Zhang Xian knew that he had finished dealing with the matters in the mountain range. Without any hesitation, he brought by you with him. Suppressing the pain in his body, he made his way to the cave while channeling the tiger roar. He was recuperating from the serious injuries in his body. The full-strength attack of a Foundation establishment stage expert was indeed not an ordinary attack. Although nothing could be seen from the outside, the internal organs of his body had suffered quite a bit of damage. Even his meridians were damaged. These were all things that needed to be healed. Otherwise, hidden injuries would be left in his body, which would be detrimental to his development. It might even affect his plan to open up the demon abode in the future. Just imagine if his meridians were to rupture at a critical moment when he was channeling his demonic energy to open up the demon abode. It would be a tragedy. After running through the forest for a long time, the moon worship tribe Wolf King split up to look for his tribe. Tion also returned to the cave as fast as he could. At this time, the sun in the sky was getting stronger and was slowly approaching the center. Once he returned to the cave, he didn't care about anything else for the time being. He put the bundle in his mouth down beside him and laid down on the warm bear skin. He closed his eyes and silently activated the tiger roar technique. Strands of pitch-black demonic aura seeped out from his pores as he opened and closed them, forming a pitch-black demonic fog outside his body, enveloping his entire body. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the cave quickly surged into his body. Demonic energy shuttled through his meridians. With every cycle, the damaged parts of his body would be nourished by the demonic energy and heal continuously. What a domineering tiger roar. Not far from Tion's cave, the mysterious girl once again appeared. She looked at Tion in the cave with an unconcealable surprise in her eyes. During this period of time, ever since she became interested in him, she hadn't left the Tiger Hill mountain range. She had followed behind him and had seen everything that had happened in the past few days. The longer she watched, the more she became interested in Tion. This was because Tion's performance was far too unusual. It was far too different from the rest. Just what kind of fortuitous encounter did this little guy get? Not only does he have a cultivation method, but his intelligence is also extremely high and his actions exceed expectations. With my spirit-gathering pills, he was able to cultivate to the peak of the demon realm in such a short period of time. Also, that tiger roar technique allowed him to fight against a Foundation establishment stage cultivator without showing any weakness. He even managed to scare them away. Interesting, very interesting. The mysterious girl held a purple petal in her hand and gently played with it. Her cherry lips pulled out a hint of a meaningful smile. Originally, I wanted to help him when he was in danger. But now, not only did I not have to do anything, I'm afraid that I've gained quite a bit. She muttered to herself and pondered for a moment. Then, she lightly said, maybe the secret of the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box can really be uncovered by him. Who? Inside the cave, Tion cultivated for 4 to 6 hours. The demonic fog around him instantly rushed into his body and devoured everything. His originally closed tiger eyes suddenly opened. 2 cold rays of light flashed across his eyes like lightning. The domineering tiger aura flashed from his body and quickly retracted back. Immortal cultivators are really amazing. Just a Foundation establishment stage cultivator was able to heavily injure me. If a stronger one came, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to come back. Tion's heart was cold. After understanding the strength of immortal cultivators, he felt that it was even more difficult to save the White Tiger Mother and his 2 brothers and sisters. However, this difficulty not only did not destroy his fighting spirit, it instead motivated him to work harder to increase his strength. A light flashed, but this time, I've profited from a disaster. After a fierce battle, not only did my battle experience become richer, but the demonic energy in my body also became purer after recovering from my injuries. In a mountain range, although his strength continued to increase, with the help of the spirit-gathering pill, this kind of cultivation speed could be maintained until the demonic energy in his meridians was completely filled. He suppressed the thoughts in his mind. Then, He turned his head and looked at the bag beside him. Inside the bag were the items of the immortal cultivators. Among them were the green ruler and the flying sword. He had personally experienced the power of these two magic tools. They were indeed very powerful. However, what Di Shirtian really looked forward to the most was the storage bag on Li Xiangchen's body. In his previous life, in myths and legends, there were Chinquan bags, Sumra mustard seeds, and other immortal treasures that could store items. These kinds of treasures that could store large amounts of items were even more attractive to Di Shirtian. Voila! He opened the bag with his mouth and saw that in the originally dark cave, there were suddenly a few bright rays of light. In the cave, there was a large amount of light. This light was not dazzling to the eyes. When he looked at it carefully, everything in front of him appeared in his eyes. There were not many things in the bag, only a mere 3 items. Chapter 39. One was a 3-inch-long cyan ruler, the other was the scarlet flying sword, and the last one was the simple bag that was not much bigger than a palm. Di Shirtian looked at the 3 treasures in front of him, and with a slight movement, he stretched out his tiger claw and grabbed the storage bag in his hand. He pulled it a few times with a little force, but found that the bag was made of some unknown material, and there was no damage at all. Sure enough, it's a cultivator's treasure. Di Shirtian nodded gently, fiddled with it a few more times, and thought, the storage bag has always been filled with all kinds of cultivator's treasures. Let's see what's inside the bag. He didn't know anything about the items in the cultivation world, so he could only study them slowly. Although the storage bag was only the size of a palm, it could hold items far larger than the size of the bag, and the way to open it must be unusual. After fiddling with it for a while, he found that this storage bag was really strange. Although it looked similar to an ordinary bag, the bag's mouth was tightly shut. No matter how Di Shirtian tugged at it, he was unable to open it. Even when he tried to inject his demonic power into the storage bag, it was still not working. It only made the storage bag emit a layer of rich cyan light. It didn't open the bag. Demonic power doesn't work. Could it be that my method is wrong? Di Shirtian fell in a deep thought, and for a moment his eyes suddenly burst into a ball of light, and a light flashed in his mind. In my previous life, I heard that the cultivator's magic treasure would leave their own imprint on it and engrave their divine sense. In this way, the magic treasure would recognize him as its master. Could it be that to open the storage bag, I have to first imprint my divine sense on it and let it recognize me as its master? Thinking like this, the light in his eyes became stronger and stronger, and the more he thought that this idea should be correct. Just do it. Di Shirtian's mind moved, and suddenly a demonic sense rushed out of his mind and fell on the storage bag. As soon as his divine sense touched the storage bag, it suddenly shone brightly. At the same time, he only felt that a strange space suddenly appeared in his mind. This space was not very big, only 3 cubic meters in size. But in the space, it seemed a little empty, and there were only dozens of shiny crystals, an ancient book, a strange compass, and dozens of hundreds of various talismans. There were more than a dozen blank jade boxes, and there was nothing else except these. This should be the space in the storage bag. What's inside? Let's take it out and see. When Sakura saw this space, he immediately realized that this should be the space in the storage bag. It seems that the space in this storage bag isn't big, only 3 cubic meters, which is about the size of a small warehouse for storing items. There were not many things that could be stored, but for him now, it was completely enough. After branding the demonic sense on the storage bag, he could clearly feel that he could control the items in this space at will. This was just a thought, and immediately he saw a flash of light on the storage bag, and the items in the bag immediately spit out. They fell to the ground, not more, not less, and were the items that he just saw. The ancient books that can be stored in the storage bag by the immortal cultivators are definitely not ordinary books. Di Shirtian put all the things in front of him in order, and after a quick glance, his eyes fell straight on the ancient book. There was a faint expectation in his heart. Maybe this is the ancient book of immortal cultivation in the immortal cultivation world. Voila! Putting the ancient book in front of him and looking carefully, he recognized the words on the cover. Art of Longevity. 3 simple words appeared in front of him. Seeing these 3 words, Deschertien's eyes suddenly lit up, and he quickly opened the ancient book. This look was not out of his expectations. It was really an ancient book of immortal cultivation. After confirming, he immediately put other things aside for the time being, and his 2 eyes stared intently at the contents of the ancient book, word by word, memorizing the contents of the ancient book in his mind. He turned the pages one by one. It was not a thick ancient book, but as he read and memorized it, it took him a full 2 hours to turn the ancient book to the last page. Oh! After reading all of it, Deschertien finally let out a light breath and raised his eyes. His eyes were quite complicated. There was excitement, indifference, expectation, and so on, intertwined together. Immortal cultivators, thank you for sending me such an ancient book of immortal cultivation. His eyes were incomparably deep. To be honest, the book in front of him was not a profound ancient book, and it could be imagined that those really powerful cultivation methods would not be recorded on pages. They would be engraved on jade slips. This was just a cultivation method of the chi refining stage that every cultivator in the chi refining stage had when they first started cultivating. The art of longevity had a total of 13 levels. Each level corresponded to a realm of the chi refining stage. For example, if he cultivated to the first level, it meant that he had the cultivation of the first level of the chi refining stage. If he cultivated to the 12th level, it meant that he could proceed to the foundation establishment stage. As for the 13th level, it was called the great perfection of the chi refining stage by cultivators. Not everyone needed to reach the great perfection. At the 12th level, it was completely possible to proceed to the foundation establishment stage. However, when one cultivated to the great perfection, the probability of entering the foundation establishment stage would be 30% higher. The great perfection was naturally very attractive, but it was extremely difficult to cultivate to the 13th level without great perseverance. This art of longevity was very good, and it could be considered a superior cultivation method of the chi refining stage. However, for Deschertien, it was almost irrelevant. He already had the tiger roaring technique, which was the most suitable cultivation method for him. It was the behavior of a fool to neglect the essentials. What really surprised him was not the art of longevity, but the 5 elements magic at the end of the art of longevity. Fireball technique, ice blade technique, wind blade technique, earth shield technique, diamond technique, and so on. Although these were just some basic magic, in the cultivation world, almost every chi refining stage cultivator knew 1 or 2 of them. They seemed unremarkable, but for a monster cultivator like Deschertien, who had never received any guidance and relied completely on himself to cultivate, they were simply more precious than any magic tool. It wasn't that he didn't have any demonic power. It was that he had demonic power, but he didn't know any spells. He could only use them based on his own understanding. Now that he knew these spells, his strength could be doubled after he finished cultivating them. Even if his demonic power didn't increase, his strength would be several times stronger than before. It had to be said that this ancient book was simply a timely help. It immediately solved his urgent need and made up for his weakness. Good. Although I was injured this time, it was completely worth it to obtain these treasures, no matter how heavy the injury. Deschertien was excited. He put the ancient book back into the storage pouch and studied the remaining treasures. He knew that the greenwood ruler and the scarlet flying sword were magic tools used for attack. However, these were good treasures. Even if he coveted them, it was useless. He had not opened his demon abode, so he could not blood bond with these 2 magic tools. Without blood bond, he would not be able to display the magic tool's true power. Therefore, he could only look at the treasures and sigh. He also looked at the compass, but did not see anything special. After studying it for a while, he also threw it into the storage pouch. However, he did not know that it was the most precious treasure in here, the psychic compass. After Li Xiangshan died, the compass was placed in the storage pouch. Now that he had taken it back, Deschertien had picked up a big meat pie for free. Those talismans were some basic magic. As long as one crushed them with spiritual power, they would turn into magic to attack the enemy. Most of the jade boxes were empty. Li Xianxun had probably placed them inside to store the spiritual items of heaven and earth. In a small part of the jade boxes, there were already some spirit herbs like sealwort and ginseng. After looking through them one by one, Di Shitian did not hesitate and put them all into the storage pouch. Although there were many things in there, the storage pouch did not increase in weight at all. It was really amazing. After thinking for a while, he came to the stone wall and took out the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box, the jade bottle containing the soul-gathering pills, and the mysterious beast-taming collar. He put them all into the storage pouch. Tiger Hill Mountain Range was no longer safe. He also decided to leave this place with the subordinates he had subdued in the past few days as soon as possible. He was going to leave, so naturally, the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box could not be left here. In the past few days, he had made some progress in the puzzle of the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box. He wanted to see what changes would happen to the treasure box when the puzzle was completed. He also wanted to see what was hidden in the treasure box. Tiger Hill Mountain Range will definitely attract a lot of cultivators in the future. I can't run back here anymore. It's too dangerous. This time, I'm leaving to take all the things I need to take with me. If he had not obtained the storage pouch, he would not have had such thoughts. Now, with the storage pouch, he could do many things that he did not dare to think of before. As he thought about it, he suddenly thought of the large boulder beside the waterfall. That rock had saved him from danger time and time again. It was definitely a rare treasure that no one knew about. Without a bag of holding, he wouldn't have been able to take it away. However, with the space in his bag of holding, he could definitely fit the rock inside. Whoa! As soon as this thought came to mind, it immediately took root in his mind. Without any hesitation, it suddenly stood up and leaped out of the cave with its two hind legs. Its body shuttled back and forth in the mountain forest. Its body emitted a tiger's aura that deterred the surrounding animals. None of them dared to approach it. It rushed to the mountain peak with ease. This little guy is actually running towards me. I'll hide first and not meet him for the time being. The mysterious woman was standing on the mountain peak. Naturally, she noticed Di Shitian's movements. Seeing that he was actually running towards her direction, she could not help but be surprised. However, she did not plan to meet Di Shitian now. Her body shook slightly, and in the blink of an eye, she disappeared from the mountain peak. She did not leave. Instead, she used the art of invisibility to hide at the side. She also wanted to see what Di Shitian wanted to do by coming here. Chapter 40. Demonic cultivation was different from immortal cultivation. Demonic cultivation was not only focused on one's demonic power, but also on one's physical body. During cultivation, demonic power was often divided into two parts. One part would enter the physical body and integrate with the body to enhance one's strength, making the body stronger and the physique taller. Among the demonic cultivators, the larger the body, the more powerful they were. Fighting in their original form was often more powerful than in their human form. Once they revealed their original form, their strength might increase exponentially. Transforming into a human form was only because the human body was the most suitable Taoist body for cultivation in the world. In a real battle, the demonic body was still more powerful. Sakura's body at this time was already comparable to 2 times the size of an ordinary tiger. It could be said that he was huge and burly with a strong tiger aura, majestic and awe-inspiring. When the surrounding beasts caught a whiff of the aura of the king of beasts, they immediately fled in the opposite direction or lay on the ground, their bodies trembling like a sieve. He walked at a moderate speed in the familiar mountain forest. As he walked, he carefully observed his surroundings. Tomorrow, he would leave Tiger Hill Mountain Range and go to an unfamiliar place. Perhaps he didn't know when he would be able to come back next time. This departure also meant that he would break away from the monotonous life of ordinary beasts and embark on a completely different path. He wanted to become a demon, and he wanted to cultivate a heaven-shaking divine ability. Tomorrow, I will leave here. However, if I leave the mountain range, where should I go? Walking in the mountain forest, Sakura began to plan for his future life. Ever since he was born, he had been living in this Tiger Hill mountain range. As for what kind of place was outside, it was also pitch black in front of his eyes. He didn't know anything. To have a definite goal, this was quite important for migration. If it wasn't for the huge change that happened today that caught him off guard, he wouldn't have the time to waste here and had to leave as soon as possible. Before he left, he would have definitely sent by you and the others to scout around and see if there were any other suitable places for him to stay. After confirming, he would start the migration. This was a migration with a purpose and was also relatively safe. However, it was different now. Due to the change, the migration was very hurried. Without a specific direction and goal, many things would definitely happen during the migration. Tiger Hill Mountain Range has appeared in the eyes of the cultivators. Not only can I not stay in the mountain range, but also near the mountain range. If I am too close, I will be in danger. Therefore, I can only go as far as possible. In the east, there are human towns and villages. If I go out, I will die. Now, I can only migrate to the south. Sakura's eyes flashed with sparks of wisdom. The east was definitely not possible, so there were only 3 remaining directions. In these days, he had also stood on the peak and observed carefully. Only the south side was boundless and seemed to be the most suitable for migration. The remaining 2 directions, more or less, were likely to be connected to human settlements. Now, he had already attracted the attention of the immortal cultivators. The only thing he could do was to hide for a while and let this matter slowly die down. Moreover, he needed time to accumulate strength so that he could break through to become a demonic beast as soon as possible and improve his strength greatly. Therefore, the more secluded the place was, the better. It would be best if there was no human habitation at all. That was the safest place. It would allow them to accumulate strength and peace. When the hidden dragon came out of the abyss and amazed the world. South, go south. D. Shirtion quickly strengthened his confidence in his heart. He wanted to go south. Time flew by while he was thinking. Unknowingly, he had arrived at the waterfall peak. He shook his head and quickly got rid of the messy thoughts in his mind. He stared at the big rock that was still standing on the peak. His eyes were a little complicated. Rock, the mysterious rock. I don't know if I can open it with my current strength. Sakura took a deep breath. Last time, he wasn't able to move the boulder. These days, he had been continuously consuming spirit-gathering pills to accumulate his demonic energy. The demonic energy in his body had already increased by 30%. At this juncture, he couldn't help but have the impulse to try and see if he could break the boulder. There was definitely a rare treasure in the rock. After cultivating on the rock for the past few days, he vaguely felt a strange connection with the rock. It was as if he could feel something. Good, let's try again. Maybe I can break open the rock and see the real treasure inside. D. Shirtion was not a wishy-washy person. Since he had this idea, he didn't force himself to suppress it. Thinking so, he was about to do it. Roar. First, he quickly circulated his demonic power in the meridians in his body so that he was in peak condition. Waves of dark demonic power flowed through his meridians. He took a deep breath and let out a low roar. He raised a tiger claw, and his demonic power rushed in like a tide. In an instant, a layer of dark light burst out from the tiger claw. It doubled in size and became extremely terrifying. The sharp black light was like a metallic luster. The strong tiger aura rolled like a tide and completely covered the entire peak under the aura of the king of beasts. A kind of oppressive aura filled the surroundings. Boom! He poured his demonic power into the tiger claw without thinking about the consequences. When he felt the intense pain in the tiger claw's meridians, he slammed it down. The claw hit the rock solidly. The rock was incomparably hard and mysterious. This time, there was no movement like last time. It also didn't absorb the power he blasted out. Instead, there was a sudden burst of extremely terrifying power in the rock. It shone like white jade and carried the demonic power that D. Shirtion blasted out. In an instant, It was all reflected back and poured directly onto him. Bang! This power was truly terrifying. Not only did it contain the power of the boulder itself, it also contained the full force of the Sakura's attack. Just like that, all the power of the boulder was reflected back. When the two powers converged together, one could well imagine how terrifying it was. Tion didn't expect this to happen. Moreover, the power of the rebound came too quickly and didn't give him any time to react. He was hit by this tyrannical power in an instant. Puff! His body seemed to have been struck by lightning. He couldn't hold back a mouthful of blood and spat it out from his mouth. Like a sharp arrow that had just been shot, it fell straight on the rock. Tion's body was also sent flying by the impact. In an instant, he landed heavily on the ground 3 feet away and spat out another mouthful of blood. How is this possible? Tion's eyes were full of shock. In an instant, he suffered more serious injuries than when he was surrounded by those immortal cultivators. His internal organs were almost displaced. His meridians were already cracked. However, what really shocked him wasn't his injuries, but the sudden change in the rock in front of him. He saw that the mysterious rock that was originally simple and unadorned, no different from any other rock. After Tion spat out a mouthful of blood, the blood mysteriously disappeared quickly, as if it had been swallowed by the rock. Then, the jade light on the rock suddenly surged. In contrast to its previous ordinariness, it appeared to have an incredible spirituality. Boom, boom, boom. The huge rock trembled violently and swayed. It rose from the ground and floated 3 feet above the ground. Plop, plop. The boulder emitted a throbbing sound that resembled a human's heartbeat. Furthermore, the jade light emitted from the boulder also contracted and expanded along with this strange throbbing sound. It truly resembled a beating heart. It was as if a peerless divine fetus was being nurtured in the rock, and now was about to be born. Looking at the unforeseen event in front of him, Sakura had only stepped into the cultivation world for a short period of time. Even if he had wisdom that wasn't inferior to anyone, his lack of knowledge about the cultivation world made him unable to know what this unforeseen event meant. His body was also heavily injured. He could only look at the change in front of him in shock. Just as surprised was the mysterious girl who was hiding by the side with the art of invisibility. An uncontrollable shock appeared on her proud face that seemed to have been personally created by the heavens. Her small lips unconsciously parted, and her eyes widened. How is this possible? Inside the boulder, there was actually a unique treasure that was unparalleled in the world. No, it might not be a treasure. Could it be a peerless divine fetus that was created by heaven and earth? Even with her knowledge and experience, she was unable to determine exactly what was strange about this boulder when she saw this mysterious scene. Crack! At this moment, a huge cloud suddenly gathered in the sky above the rock. This cloud was not a dark cloud. Instead, it shone with a colorful light. Bolts of lightning with different colors shuttled through the clouds. Dazzling lightning burst forth. Lightning was the power of heaven and earth. It represented the majesty of heaven and earth. The majestic heaven's might came from the lightning and covered the entire mountain like a tide. Roar! Tion, who was already injured, suddenly felt another mountain pressing down on him. The terrifying pressure forced him to lie on the ground. Even so, his 2 tiger eyes were fixed on the strange scene in front of him. This is a tribulation cloud. Heaven, what exactly is being nurtured in the rock? The moment it is born, it provoked heaven to use tribulation to destroy it. The mysterious girl exclaimed in her heart. Crack! At this moment, the tribulation cloud in the sky rolled. A golden bolt of divine lightning fell from the sky with an incomparably sharp aura and mighty divine might. It heavily bombarded the rock. If you want the main character to obtain the ultimate treasure nurtured within the boulder, then just throw in your votes. I want votes. This is a huge twist, and it will lead to a unique setting that I've already planned out. Chapter 41. Boom! The golden divine lightning struck the rock, but the rock didn't show any fear. Instead, it revealed traces of excitement and allowed the divine lightning to strike its body. This divine lightning was indeed the power of the heavenly tribulation. In an instant, the rock that the Sakura couldn't damage no matter how hard he tried was blasted into a large number of small broken stones. The golden lightning covered the boulder, wanting to continue to wreak havoc and destroy the boulder. However, the jade light in the boulder suddenly exploded. It suddenly had infinite power and swallowed all the power of the lightning that covered the boulder's surface. Thump! Thump! The sound from the boulder was still the same as before. Moreover, this sound was even stronger than before, as if it had gained strength from the divine lightning just now. Crack! The Rock Ghost King's actions seemed to provoke the heavenly tribulation in the sky. The heavenly tribulation churned violently, and with a loud boom, a bolt of crimson divine lightning that was even larger than the one before struck the Rock Ghost King. A violent explosion occurred, and the surface of the Rock Ghost King was shattered into pieces. It fell to the ground. The boulder size was even smaller. However, the boulder was incomparably mysterious. It first allowed the divine lightning to destroy the hard boulder on the outside. When the divine lightning completely covered its body, it mysteriously swallowed all the power of the divine lightning in one fell swoop like before. In this way, the heavenly tribulation was no longer as ferocious as before. Here, it was like the boulder's food. It was incomparably mysterious. Anger. The heavenly tribulation was furious. The tribulation cloud that was originally 5-colored suddenly changed into 7-colored tribulation clouds. Bolts of lightning fell like rain. They continuously bombarded the boulder. The boulder's surface was shattered bit by bit. Every time it received a bolt, the boulder's size would shrink. However, the smaller it was, the more intense the jade light emitted by the boulder. The thump, thump, thump sound became louder and more powerful. It was as if a peerless divine embryo was being nurtured inside. It was about to break out of the boulder. What kind of treasure is inside the boulder? It actually uses the heavenly tribulation to temper itself and absorb the power of the divine lightning. I have never heard of such a thing happening. Amazing, too amazing. At this moment, the mysterious girl's eyes were also wide open. She stared unblinkingly at the development before her. With her experience, she could tell with a single glance that the Rock Ghost King was actually absorbing the power of the lightning to temper himself. Such an action was simply earth-shattering and incomparably shocking. She could guarantee that there was absolutely no one in the world of cultivators who was so unbelievably powerful. He dared to absorb the power of the heavenly tribulation. This also indicated that the chief treasure inside the rock was definitely a rare and unparalleled treasure. Boom, boom, boom. Bolts of lightning fell like rain. Every single one of them was extraordinary. The golden one was the Gung Jin Heavenly Thunder. The green one was the Emu Heavenly Thunder, and the other types of Heavenly Thunder. All of them were extremely powerful thunder tribulations. The power contained within them was enough to injure a nascent soul stage old monster severely in an instant. However, these terrifyingly powerful heavenly tribulations were actually unable to shake the boulder in front of them. Instead, it continued to devour the power of the divine thunder. Every time it swallowed one, the strength of the rock would increase by a bit. Crack! The heavenly thunder continued to bombard the boulder for a quarter of an hour. After being unable to do anything to the boulder, the tribulation clouds rolled violently. Suddenly, they gathered together and turned into a purple heavenly thunder. It crossed the boundary of time and space and heavily bombarded the boulder. Boom! The boulder burst out with thousands of rays of jade light. Countless stones fell from the boulder and burst out in all directions. The jade light covered the sky and the earth. At this moment, the entire mountain was completely covered under the light. The jade light spun around, forming a vortex. Like a terrifying mouth, it instantly swallowed the tribulation clouds in the sky. Chief treasure. This is definitely the chief treasure. If I get it, it will be easy for me to take revenge and save Mother White Tiger and the others. The jade light blazed brightly, causing Tion to see a vast expanse of white. He couldn't see anything. He only heard a loud boom, and the lightning in the sky stopped. In his heart, how could he not know that this was definitely the birth of the chief treasure? In his mind, all kinds of complicated thoughts were spinning. A desire to grab the mysterious chief treasure in his hand crazily swelled. In his heart, he kept shouting. In an instant, several inches of light shot out from his eyes. Suddenly, the scene in front of him changed. Swoosh! In an instant, the jade light that covered the sky receded like the tide. In the blink of an eye, it was gone. It was as if the shocking jade light, just now, was all an illusion. Tion wasn't in the mood to think about this. He quickly looked at the boulder where it was originally. When he saw it, his mouth couldn't help but open wide. Could this be the supreme chief treasure that was born in the boulder? In front of him was a rectangular piece of jade. This piece of jade didn't emit any light. It was a complete piece that was as long as a farmer's bench. As a whole, it didn't have a single flaw. It was perfect and flawless. On top of it, the jade light flowed. At a glance, one could tell that this was definitely a rare piece of jade. Although Tion hadn't seen the jade annulus of the He clan, he believed that this piece of jade in front of him was definitely not inferior to the jade annulus of the He clan. Perfect, it was really perfect. This was a jade embryo that was born from heaven and earth. A jade embryo like this was born in the boulder. What kind of treasure is this? Disregarding his own injuries, Sakura quickly stood up and came to the front of this jade embryo. The jade embryo wasn't as mystical as before. It fell to the ground like an ordinary person. Inside, there wasn't any unusual mystical power. It was as if it was really a piece of supreme jade in the secular world. Patter! Tion walked to the jade embryo and placed his tiger claw on it. His eyes were filled with surprise. What a strange feeling. Although he didn't feel any power from the jade stone, he discovered that there seemed to be a mysterious connection between him and the jade embryo. When he placed his tiger claw on the jade embryo, he could faintly feel that the jade embryo was emitting a trace of joyful aura. It was very strange when it reached his heart. This was a feeling that he had never felt before. This jade embryo was born from the boulder. Although I don't know why I didn't feel the power from the boulder, it's definitely not an ordinary jade embryo. In almost an instant, Tion had already decided that this jade embryo might be a rare treasure. Judging from the power of the tribulation, it was definitely not something that an ordinary object could possess. In addition, the mysterious connection between him and the jade embryo made him instantly certain. The jade embryo in front of him was a treasure. A prime treasure. The mysterious girl sighed in confusion. What's going on? This jade embryo is obviously a treasure born from the boulder, but why can't I feel any power from it? It seems to be no different from an ordinary jade. Strange. This is really strange. Could it be that the tribulation failed and the divine embryo was destroyed by the tribulation? Because of the previous jade light, she couldn't see what happened at all. She only saw that the tribulation turned into a bolt of purple divine lightning. The power in that divine lightning was extremely shocking. Just by approaching the edge, she felt like she couldn't withstand it and was about to reveal her original form. That bolt of purple lightning was really too scary. Now that she saw it again, it was just an ordinary piece of jade. She couldn't see anything special about it. She had also used her demon sense to examine it, but there was nothing special about it. Under her investigation, it was just an ordinary piece of jade. He couldn't help but wonder if the divine embryo had been destroyed by the heavenly tribulation. Once this thought appeared, she couldn't help but temporarily dismiss the idea of taking the jade embryo. Most importantly, she didn't want Tion to know about her existence now. Forget it. Anyway, I'm going to follow behind the little black tiger. If there's anything special, I'll know about it sooner or later. If there's really something strange, I'll just take it when the time comes. It's not good for the black tiger to know about my existence now. I still need to rely on him to crack the imperial heavenly treasure box. The mysterious girl murmured and made a decision. After all, She thought that she would be following D. Shirtian for this period of time and could observe him. If there were any changes, she could easily deal with it with her abilities. That was why she wasn't in a hurry to take action. This is a treasure. Different from the mysterious girl's thoughts, Sakura's heart was firm. The jade embryo was a treasure. Without thinking too much, he opened his storage bag and put the jade embryo into his bag. After that, he turned around and walked down the mountain. The huge backlash from the rock just now had already caused him great injuries. They were going to migrate tomorrow. Even if he couldn't fully recover from his injuries, he had to stabilize them temporarily today. No one knew what kind of danger they would encounter during the migration. He had to deal with it in his best condition. Roar! He quickly ran down the mountain and passed through the forest. He couldn't delay the migration any longer. The scene of lightning and thunder just now would definitely be seen by many people in the mortal world again. By then, there would probably be a large number of immortal cultivators entering the mountain range in a few days' time. He couldn't rely on luck. The urgency of the migration was even more pressing. Ignoring everything else, he dragged his heavily injured body back to the cave. He took out a soul-gathering pill from his storage bag and swallowed it. Then, he closed his eyes and began to cultivate. He circulated the tiger roar technique and quickly nourished the injured parts of his body and repaired the cracks in his meridians. His injuries this time were too severe. It was impossible for him to fully recover in a day's time. Thus, he could only rely on the effects of the soul-gathering pill to stabilize his injuries. He had to recover at least 50% of his combat strength. Only then could he more or less guarantee his safety during the migration. Chapter 42. His demonic power flowed through his meridians like a river. His meridians were like rivers. His meridians were like parched canals under the scorching sun. As his demonic power flowed through his meridians, it provided the parched earth with the best moisture. The cracks gradually began to heal under this silent nourishment. The power of the Rock Ghost King's counterattack, in addition to the full power of the Rock Ghost King's attack, had all been inflicted on him. Cracks appeared on his meridians, and his internal organs were greatly damaged. This kind of injury was not something that could be healed in a short day. Now, Sakura could only use the medicinal power of the spirit-gathering pill to recover his own demonic power and then slowly nourish the injured areas. He temporarily sealed the matter of the jade embryo in his mind. No matter how miraculous the jade embryo was, that was a matter for the future. Right now, the most pressing matter wasn't the jade embryo, but the migration that was right in front of his eyes. He adjusted his condition and tried his best to be in the best state possible for the upcoming migration. Just as Deshirtian was silently recovering from his injuries, the creatures in Tiger Hill mountain range were in a state of panic. That was because they realized that the kings in the mountain range had actually moved out at the same time. Moreover, it wasn't just one of them. They were moving out to bring the entire tribe out of their original encampment. Within the Monkey Valley, over 1,000 monkeys of various sizes were bouncing and jumping as they left the Monkey Valley. The majority of these monkeys were carrying things in their hands. They were wrapped in animal fur. They were either wrapped in fruits or seeds. There were also many sturdy monkeys carrying large bamboo tubes of varying lengths on their backs. Every single one of them paid special attention to the bamboo tubes. In total, there were hundreds of tubes. There were also many that carried fruit tree saplings. It had to be said that a tribe with a king was often very different from a tribe without one. If it were any other tribe, they definitely wouldn't have made so many preparations before moving. However, the monkey tribe had done so, under the lead of a golden ape as tall as a human. There were also a few strong wild wolves leading the way. The entire monkey tribe moved out of the Monkey Valley and hurried towards the gathering point designated by Deshirtian. At the same time, a shocking number of vultures suddenly flew out of the Condor Peak. The one at the front was huge. When it spread its wings, it was at least a few meters wide. When it flapped its wings, it stirred up gusts of wind. It was very fast. The cluster of golden feathers on its head was like a golden firework. It was like a phoenix standing in a flock of chickens. It stood out from the masses. It led the group of vultures towards the center of the mountain range. On the ground, poisonous snakes of various sizes and colors crawled out of the mountain streams without any warning. There were so many of them that it made one's scalp tingle. The one at the front was a huge white python that was as thick as a bucket. It slithered quickly on the ground, its perfect scales wriggling constantly. The group of snakes passed by, provoking the various birds and beasts in front of them. One by one, they ran in all directions as if they were rioting. Such a large group of snakes was not something that ordinary animals could contend against. Even an elephant would be swallowed by the group of snakes at this time. Not even its bones would be left. The vultures flew in the sky, while the snakes crawled on the ground. They were all heading towards the same place. At the same time, in different areas of the mountain range, the three tribes were all heading towards the same place. Such a scene could be said to be very grand. Wherever they passed, all kinds of animals would disappear. With the king's speed, it would not take long for them to reach their destination. However, the ordinary clansmen did not have that kind of speed. Therefore, they would set off as soon as the sky turned dark. That way, they would be able to reach their destination before the appointed time. In the morning, the first ray of light bloomed from the east. It reflected on the clouds in the sky and dyed the clouds red. There was purple air coming from the east. The rays of light dispelled the original darkness. The earth recovered and light appeared again. The golden sunlight shone on the grass and trees in the mountain range. The drops of dew became colorful. It was crystal clear and beautiful. Boom, boom, boom. A waterfall cascaded down from the peak of the mountain and into the pool. Layers of clear water splashed out, and a faint fragrance filled the air of the valley. Taking a deep breath gave people a kind of unparalleled enjoyment that made them feel relaxed and happy. Whoosh! In the cave, Sakura's entire body was covered in a thick layer of black chi. The black chi was condensed and didn't dissipate. It shrouded the surroundings and kept rolling. In the surroundings, strands of heaven and earth power quickly entered the black chi. With a long exhalation sound, the black gas rolled violently. Then, it quickly rushed to the middle and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The mighty body in the middle was revealed. A huge black tiger crawled on the ground. Its body was at least twice the size of an ordinary tiger. Looking at it from afar, one could feel a kind of fierce aura circulating around its body. The king's aura condensed and did not dissipate. The purple king's mark on its forehead was even more obvious. The tiger's two eyes suddenly opened. Two rays of light shot out from his eyes. He stood up and shook his sturdy tiger body. Then, he soared into the air with a majestic tiger might. One night can only restore 60% of my strength. The rest, I need to slowly recuperate. Shirtian's injuries had recovered more than half in this night's recuperation. He did not have time to slowly recuperate. He could only recover slowly with time. The Ape King and the others should have all arrived at the designated destination. It's also time to migrate. Shirtian thought decisively. He rushed out of the cave and ran out to bite an adult deer to death. He drank the blood and ate the meat. After filling his stomach, he returned to the cave and tied the storage bag to his thigh. He looked at the cave, and his eyes flashed with a strange light. He thought of the scene when he was just born. His eyes revealed a threatening coldness. White Tiger Mother, brother and sister, don't worry. Even if those immortal cultivators catch you to the ends of the earth, I will cultivate to a shocking level and save you. When I find out who caught you, I will destroy their whole family sooner or later. He secretly made up his mind. He turned his head and no longer had any reluctance. Tiger Hill Mountain Range was only his first stop. Leaving the mountain range was to step into a wider world. All the things that he wanted to take away were all placed in the storage bag. There was nothing left in the cave. Roar! Leaping out of the cave, a heaven-shaking tiger roar came out from Shirtian's mouth, and his body quickly leaped forward. The direction he went was the valley under the waterfall. Shuttling through the forest, his speed was quite fast. Not long after, the valley appeared in front of him. At this time, the valley was different from before. One could only see that in the sky above the valley, strong goshawks were constantly circling in the sky. When they saw Tion appear, a series of eagle cries rang out. The apes all over the ground heard the cries and immediately got up. In the pool, colorful snakes rushed out. Thousands of wolves lying on the ground also quickly stood up. The kings of the 4 great clans also began to move. They organized their respective clans and spread out in the valley. They formed a continuous, dark mass. Welcome, King. Under the leadership of the 4 kings, for a moment, no matter if it was the vultures, wolves, snakes, or apes, they all bowed down towards Sakura, who was walking into the valley in their own way. The spirituality of an ordinary race was limited, but every single one of them was looking at Tion with a trace of reverence. Rise, all of you. Sakura nodded his head in a low voice. The invisible, awe-inspiring aura around his body became even denser. Looking at the valley, the total number of the 4 races added up to more than 100,000. Among them, the number of snakes was too large. They were densely packed and hard to count. As for the others, each tribe only had 2,000 to 3,000 snakes. Adding them all together, it was a rather large number. Just think about it for a moment. What kind of shocking scene would it be when the 4 races were all gathered together? Then the migration of the entire race, such a scene was truly shocking. Baiwe, Susu, are the 4 of you ready? King, we are ready. All of our tribe members are gathered here. As long as you give the order, we can start moving. Baiwe said respectfully. They were not humans. When moving, they did not need too many things. They just needed to follow. King, where are we moving to? Condor King Kong suddenly asked. South. There's no one there. If we keep going south, we will find a suitable place to live. Tion looked at Kong. Kong's eyes flashed. He said, King, I can fly in the sky. I have left the mountain range before to look around. I have also been to the south. I found a mountain range that is even bigger than this one. It is very hidden, and there are many powerful auras there. He was the king of condors, and his speed was incomparable. After becoming the king of condors, he didn't stay on Condor Peak all the time. Instead, he left to observe the surroundings. Compared to the other kings who had never left the mountain range, he had a lot of valuable knowledge. When Tion heard this, his 2 eyes immediately shot out a shocking light. He realized that the place that Kong mentioned might really be a good place to go. Eagle Kong, how much do you know about that mountain range? Tell me everything. Without hesitation, he asked Kong. The other 3 leaders also looked at Kong. Kong didn't hesitate and immediately told them everything he knew. It turned out that if you kept going south from here, it was called the Southern Land. That area was not suitable for ordinary people to live in. Therefore, there were all kinds of beasts there. Recommended author, Invincible Iron Knight. Author, Otaku Evildoer by Cho. The genius otaku of the gaming world was accidentally playing the latest version of an online game. The system mutated, and he was transported to another world. In the other world, he became a very strong, loving, and promising prisoner who was exiled by his family for molesting a princess. Damn, this joke was too big. As the first virgin in history to transmigrate, Baicho found that his future was very bleak. Chapter 43. Poisonous miasma, swamps, and various other incomparably dangerous, ominous grounds. In some places, even if a cultivator were to fall into it, their cultivation would be reduced to nothing, and they would be completely buried within this mountain range. Of course, at the same time that it was dangerous, there were also various temptations within the mountain range that made cultivators want to enter tirelessly. For example, there were various exotic plants, various rare spirit medicines, precious equipment, refinement materials, and so on. All of them were treasures that made cultivators go crazy, and they wouldn't hesitate even if they had to lose their lives. Therefore, in the eyes of those rogue cultivators that didn't belong to a cultivation sect and some cultivation clans, the Southern Barbaric Mountain Range was a place that was rather worthy of attention. There would often be rogue cultivators that entered the mountain range with the mentality of luck, hoping to find some spirit medicines that would allow their cultivation to break through. They would be able to find precious equipment, refinement materials, and refine a top-notch magic weapon. Everyone had the mentality of luck, and there were quite a few lucky people. Those that were able to leave the mountain range were usually those that more or less obtained some benefits. As for those that didn't leave, they would be buried within the mountain range and become food for various ferocious beasts. However, in terms of concealment, Tion and the others could indeed become inconspicuous after entering this mountain range. Moreover, if they were to find a concealed place to live, they might be able to rely on the uniqueness of the southern barbaric mountain range to allow their cultivation to rapidly increase. After all, in the southern barbaric mountain range, there existed a large amount of various spirit medicines that were difficult to grow in ordinary mountain ranges. Such a large mountain range was more than enough to hide them. Southern barbaric mountain range? A contemplative expression appeared in Tian's eyes, and he secretly thought in his heart, "This is indeed a good place. I'm a demon, and although I've obtained cultivation techniques, I don't know anything about other techniques. Since there are rogue cultivators and cultivator clans within the southern barbaric mountain range, at that time, I can obtain these cultivation techniques and secret techniques from them. Cultivation requires the support of medicinal pills. Only like this can I increase the speed of cultivation. There are spirit medicines within the mountain range, and I can solve this source of materials." Although Tion wanted to leave the Tiger Hill mountain range because of the cultivators, it was because the Tiger Hill mountain range was only so big, and the most prominent person was himself. If he were to really offend a formidable cultivator, then he would sooner or later suffer a great loss. If he continued to stay in a mountain range, he would be the best example of the saying, "The tallest tree in the forest will be the first to be destroyed by the wind." He would definitely not have a good ending. The southern barbaric mountain range was different, even though the number of cultivators that came and went was even more than the Tiger Hill mountain range. Within the mountain range, there existed a large amount of mutant beasts or formidable demon beasts. All of this guaranteed that even if he went to the mountain range, he wouldn't attract the attention of anyone and would be able to stay within the scope of the cultivation world. If he had the time and opportunity, he could slowly learn about the immortal cultivation world. He was always aware of the developments in the immortal cultivation world. In addition, there were all kinds of resources in the mountain range that were useful for cultivation. If one were to seriously consider it, then the southern barbaric mountain range was absolutely the best place to go. "King, when I was flying in the sky above the southern barbaric mountain range, I once discovered an enormous valley. The valley is very well hidden. If we go there, that place is most suitable for us to live in and establish our foundation." Kong said in the end. These words put down the final bargaining chip in Tian's heart that was originally faintly about to make up his mind. His tiger-like eyes flashed as he said, "All right, we'll go to the southern barbaric mountain range." Kong, how long will it take to go to the southern barbaric mountain range?" "King, if we move without restraint, it will take at least a month." Kong said straightforwardly. Since he had made up his mind, Tion became even more resolute. He directly looked at the four subordinates in front of him and said, "Kong, you'll lead your clansmen to observe the path and the enemy in the air. If there are any changes, immediately report to me." "Yes, King." Kong responded respectfully. He raised his head to the sky and let out an eagle cry. Immediately, the flock of eagles soared into the sky and circled in the air, beginning to move southward. They observed the movements in all directions. "Bayou, you lead your clansmen to explore the path ahead." "Yes, King." Bayou nodded in agreement. He also let out a high-pitched wolf howl. Several thousand wolves left the valley and explored the path ahead. Tian, give me the monkey wine you brought. I'll carry it. Follow me. By Susu, you bring your snakes to bring up the rear. Follow closely behind. Tian gave out one order after another. The monkey wine was a rare spiritual wine that could increase one's demonic power. In the future, when the spirit-gathering pills were used up, He would rely on this wine to increase his cultivation. In the future, when Yuan Tian and the others stepped onto the path of demonic cultivation, these would be treasures to increase their strength. He couldn't be careless. Only when he put them in his storage bag could he truly be at ease. Yuan Tian didn't have the time to let the monkeys gather the monkey wine together. Seeing Sakura use his storage pouch to take away all the spirit wine in one go, this kind of method made him feel awe and yearn for it even more. After all the orders were given, the grand migration finally began. The flock of eagles flew in the sky, while the wolves explored the path ahead. In the middle, Tian and the monkeys supported each other. If there were any changes, they would be able to react in time. With the group of snakes at the back, they could deter any creature that harbored ill intentions. Once the decision was made, they moved quickly. They headed straight for the south, with the eagles in the sky guiding them. There wouldn't be any problems with the direction. Such a migration team could be said to be unhindered in the mountain range. They set off in the morning and hunted some prey along the way. They didn't stop moving. In the evening, Tian and the others had already left Tiger Hill mountain range. Tian had left, but outside the mountain range, streaks of light could be seen flashing in the sky. If there were immortal cultivators, they would be able to see that those were immortal cultivators flying in the sky on all kinds of Dharma artifacts. There were many such immortal cultivators, and the direction they were heading was precisely the location of Tiger Hill mountain range. On the ground, there were also many immortal cultivators using divine travel talismans and wind-riding talismans. Along the way, two of the immortal cultivators seemed to know each other and walk hand in hand. They immediately began to talk as they hurried along the way. Big Brother Sue, last night, there was lightning and thunder in Tiger Hill mountain range. Someone said that a heavenly tribulation appeared in the mountain range. Now almost all the immortal cultivators in the vicinity are rushing to the mountain range. Do you think someone is really going through a heavenly tribulation or a rare treasure has appeared? A delicate voice sounded. Looking over, they saw that the owner of the voice was a petite young girl. This young girl's temperament was delicate and soft, which made her seem exceptionally lovable. Seeing her, they would naturally have a desire to protect her. She was the kind of person who was born to be cared for and protected by others. It can't be wrong. The possibility of someone going through a heavenly tribulation is not big. In the immortal cultivation world, those who can go through a heavenly tribulation are the ancestors of each sect. If they want to go through a heavenly tribulation, it is absolutely impossible for them to go to such a remote place. It is most likely that a treasure has appeared in the secular world. When the heavenly tribulation appeared, we could feel it from thousands of miles away. The immortal cultivator, surnamed Sue, was quite happy to answer. Junior Sister Huang, this time there will definitely be a large number of immortal cultivators rushing to the mountain range. As for rare treasures, we don't have any extravagant hopes. Even if there were, it wouldn't be something that Qi condensation disciples like us would be able to get our hands on. We'll wait for the cultivators to gather in the open market and see if we can find anything suitable for us. Bai Xiaochu nodded. The immortal cultivator, surnamed Su, seemed to be a person who knew his own limits. He knew that if there really were rare treasures, small immortal cultivators like them would be digging their own graves if they really got involved. They would lose their lives before they could get the treasures. What he really wanted was the market among the immortal cultivators. What was a market? To put it bluntly, it was a place where immortal cultivators traded, or a market. It was like a market in the secular world. However, ordinary people traded ordinary items in the secular world, while immortal cultivators traded various items used by immortal cultivators, such as spiritual talismans and materials, or magic tools and so on. This time, the unusual change in Tiger Hill mountain range would definitely attract many immortal cultivators. At that time, when many immortal cultivators gathered together, there would be a high chance that they would open a market by themselves. They would start trading. After all, it was rare for individual immortal cultivators to meet each other. It was even rarer for so many of them to meet together. There was a 90% chance that a market would open. Therefore, they were not going to the market to look for treasures, but to trade for useful things. Speaking of which, the heavenly tribulation triggered by the Rock Ghost King was simply too powerful. Such a powerful heavenly tribulation could be clearly seen even from thousands of miles away. It was hard not to attract attention. Therefore, from the beginning of the day, a large number of immortal cultivators rushed to the mountain range. Among these people, there were two groups that were more special. One group was led by a middle-aged man with a dignified aura. Behind him, if one looked carefully, one would find that the two foundation establishment cultivators of the Leaf family, who were scared away by D. Shirtian's tiger roar that day, were among them. Needless to say, this group of people was from the Leaf family, a family of immortal cultivators. It was no wonder that not only did a young master die in Tiger Hill mountain range, but the two foundation establishment cultivators also lost their magic tools. Most importantly, the psychic compass, which was the family treasure of the Leaf family, was also lost in the mountain range. The loss was so great that it could be said to be unprecedented. How could the Leaf family let it go so easily? Moreover, a heavenly tribulation appeared in the mountain range. Immediately, even the core formation ancestors of the family were provoked. A group of people rushed over in a grandiose manner. As for the other group, it was an old man with a frivolous expression. He brought a young girl with him and rushed towards the mountain range. This young girl was none other than Princess Chu Yun, who was extremely obsessed with Black Tiger. Last time, she escaped again, but Qinhai died at the hands of Di Shirtian. This made her finally realize that with her strength, she could not do anything to Black Tiger in the mountain. Therefore, she returned to the capital, found help, and made a comeback. There is only 1 week left for the new book release. For such a long time, I have been suppressed by the great gods. It is difficult for me to breathe. I hope that everyone can help me rush up the new book list in this last week. Let me have a taste of the new book list. Recommend, recommend, and recommend again. Chapter 44. Third Grandpa. You promised Yin this time that you would give the Black Tiger to me as a gift when you catch it. The princess of Chu Yun and the old man sat on a green blanket. The blanket was flying in the air. Not only was it not slow, but it was also quite stable. On it, it was more than enough to sit or lie down, let alone stand. The princess of Chu Yun hugged the old man's arm like a little girl and acted coquettishly. The old man had a cynical look on his face. He patted the princess's little head and said, "Little Yin, such a big thing happened when you came out this time. Even the little guy from the Qin family died. If it wasn't for your mother pleading for mercy, you would have been locked up this time until you went to the Lianyan sect. Hee. I know that third grandpa loves Yin the most. He definitely won't do that." The princess of Chu Yun was not afraid. Instead, she smiled. "All right, you mischievous girl. This time, I want to see what's so strange about that powerful black tiger you mentioned. Once I catch it, third grandpa will play with it for a few days, then I'll let it be your spirit beast." The old man also had a playful look on his face. His name was Chu Guan, and he was ranked third in his generation. His temperament was more mischievous. This time, Chu Yin rushed home in a hurry and even let Qinhai of the Qin family die in the Tiger Hill mountain range. This kind of thing was neither big nor small. The main thing was that according to Chu Hua and the others' description, the black tiger's uniqueness attracted the attention of the family. A spirit that had not advanced to the realm of demonic beasts could beat two foundation establishment cultivators away. The sound wave attack of the tiger's roar was so shocking. Vaguely, some people guessed that this black tiger was a mutated beast. Otherwise, even a tiger that had become a spirit would not have such terrifying strength. Therefore, after a discussion at home, they let Chu Guan, who was already a core formation cultivator, take Chu Yun to the mountain range again. At the same time, he subdued the black tiger and brought it back. Among the birds and beasts, there was a very special situation, and that was mutation. The basis of mutation was in the bloodline. For example, the offspring born from a union of a vermilion bird and an eagle would have the bloodline of both the vermilion bird and the eagle. Perhaps the offspring would be born in the form of an eagle, and under some special circumstances or some kind of fortuitous encounter, the vermilion bird bloodline in the body would be stimulated, resulting in mutation. Perhaps he would become a vermilion bird, or perhaps he would become another type of living being. This state was called mutation. In addition to ordinary birds and beasts, there were many natural spiritual beasts in this world. They were creatures that were born with intelligence and were much stronger than other beasts. In terms of talent, ordinary species couldn't even catch up. This time, after hearing Chu Yun's story, the Chu family immediately had a guess. The black tiger could be the kind of mutated beast that was produced after a mutation, which was why it had such powerful strength. If they could catch it and nurture it, they might be able to make a powerful guardian spirit beast appear in the family. That was why a core formation expert was sent here. Along the way, the immortal cultivators they met were all rushing in the direction of the Tiger Hill mountain range. Some were going for the market that might be held, and some were going for the rare treasures that might exist in the forest. All of this made Tiger Hill, a mountain range that was originally not too eye-catching, into a mix of good and bad people for a time. It was very lively. However, regardless of whether they were looking for the black tiger, they were still looking for treasures. They didn't have much to gain. How could they know that the black tiger they were looking for had already left the mountain range decisively and was leading the vast migration team to the south quickly? Along the way, there was no lack of mountains and forests. The monkeys could pick all kinds of fruits. In addition, when they left the Monkey Valley, they had already brought a lot of fruits with them, so they didn't need to worry about food. In the sky, the vultures were the fastest, so it wasn't a problem for them to find food. As for the snakes, they also ate water plants. There was no lack of food for the insects underground. The south was said to be desolate because there was no human habitation. There was no lack of mountains and forests, and all kinds of birds and beasts could be found at will. Every time the wolves stopped to rest, a part of them would go out to look for prey. Therefore, on the migration path, food wasn't a problem that troubled them. On the road, there was a group of eagles in the sky guiding them. When they met a mountain, they crossed a mountain, and when they met a river, they crossed a river. They moved straight in the direction of the southern barbaric mountain range. During the urgent migration, time flashed by. The sun rose and the moon set, and day and night alternated. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. During these 3 days, Tion silently operated the tiger roar technique as he walked, healing the remaining injuries in his body. The injuries in his meridians and various parts of his body were recovering every day. In addition, when he rested at night, he took out the monkey spirit wine and drank a mouthful every time he cultivated. This made him discover another effect of the spirit wine. It could nourish the meridians and warm the whole body, which was extremely beneficial for the recovery of injuries. Therefore, after 3 days, his injuries were much better, and his strength was directly restored to 80%. According to Tian's estimation, if this continued, it would only take another 3 days or so for his previous injuries to be completely healed. Ancient trees towered into the sky. The morning dew dotted the blooming flowers. The light of the morning sun shone through the branches and leaves, adding a trace of vitality to the gloomy mountain forest. In the early morning, the originally quiet mountain forest was broken by a burst of chaotic footsteps. If there was someone at this time, they would see a rather strange scene. Thousands of strong wolves were scouting the way in front. Some female wolves were leading their cubs behind. In the middle, there were groups of monkeys jumping around quietly. Behind them, there was a huge group of snakes. There were all kinds of venomous snakes. When people saw them, their scalps would go numb and they would shudder. In the sky, if one looked carefully, they would see thousands of goshawks constantly soaring and circling in the sky. The cries of the goshawks could be clearly heard. These races were supposed to fight to the death when they met, but here they were strangely strange. Not only were there no signs of fighting, but they were moving forward one by one. These animals' eyes would occasionally look at the incomparably large black tiger in the middle, revealing a trace of reverence. Roar! Just as they were moving forward rapidly, The high-pitched cry of an eagle pierced through the sky. Tian looked up and saw a huge vulture gliding down quickly, bringing a strong gust of wind with it as it stood on the ground. King, this subordinate saw a mountain in front. There's a strange fog everywhere on the mountain, just like the white python's place. It is on the road that we're going to pass by. The Eagle King opened his mouth and revealed an unexpected news. What? The same fog above the mountain stream where the white python used to live. Could it be miasma? Ian's heart could not help but tighten. At the beginning of the migration, he guessed that this long road would not be smooth sailing. There would be considerable difficulties and obstacles in front of them. In the past, there was fog in the mountain stream where Susu lived. That was because the creatures living in the mountain stream were all poisonous snakes. There were so many of them that the poisonous gas they breathed out was too large, intertwining and rising, forming a poisonous miasma. On the other hand, if there was miasma, it meant that there must be highly poisonous creatures nearby. Either there was a large number of them, or there was a peerless, ferocious creature. Now, there was such a mountain in front of Eagle Kong. It was likely that there would be extraordinary danger on the mountain. Pondering, he looked to his side. There were tens of thousands of creatures around. If it was miasma, he had a way to deal with it, but most of the creatures that followed were ordinary beasts. If they rushed into the miasma, they would definitely die. The miasma was not scary. Tian could shatter the miasma with the tiger roar and blow it away. However, the poisonous creatures in the mountain were a big trouble. Eagle Kong, do you see any other roads in the sky that can bypass that mountain? Tian pondered for a moment and looked up at Eagle Kong. Yes, but it will take at least 5 more days of travel. The road is not easy to walk on. Eagle Kong had already seen it in the sky, so he answered quickly. 5 days? Ian's heart sank. The migration this time was too large, and he did not have the powerful ability to move so many creatures at once. It would take a month to reach the southern barbaric mountain range from here. During this month, it was very likely that some of these creatures would fall behind or die before reaching the destination. Eagle Kong, you lead the way. We will go directly through the mountain. After pondering for a moment, he decided that it was impractical to take a detour. They would go directly over the mountain, which would take at most half a day. At worst, they would have to fight with the poisonous creatures on the mountain. How? Eagle Kong soared into the sky and led the way in front. However, the huge team continued to move forward. Sure enough, it did not take long for a mountain to appear in front of them after leaving the forest. Speaking of which, this mountain was not very high, and the peak was not very steep. It was just relatively large. If they went straight through, it would take at least half a day to pass through this mountain. There were many trees on the mountain, but they were generally not very tall. In many places, there was a strange, thick fog. This fog, even under the illumination of the sun, was not penetrated by a trace of sunlight. The whole mountain, how to put it, had a rather strange feeling. Silence. There was a deathly silence. Different from ordinary mountains, this mountain seemed to have mountains, rivers, trees, and grass, but it was too quiet and lacked a kind of vitality. It gave people a rather oppressive feeling. Just from this feeling, one could know that this was definitely not a good mountain. Eagle Kong, this is the mountain you mentioned. Although he was very sure in his heart, Tian still asked, King, this is the place. Eagle Kong seemed to be very afraid of this mountain. With the support of my brothers, I finally rushed to the new book list. I won't say many words of thanks. Those behind me are about to catch up. Brothers, in order to protect your reputation, in order to explode other people's reputation, let's throw votes together. The more recommendations, the more I will repay with more chapters in the future. Please, everyone. Chapter 45. Looking carefully at the mountain in front of them, the miasma on the mountain wasn't enough to block the way forward. After all, although there was miasma, it didn't cover the entire mountain. As long as they avoided the miasma, they could still go through. What they really needed to pay attention to was the poisonous creatures that created the miasma. Bai Wei, Yuan Kong, Susu, the 3 of you immediately gather your tribes and don't scatter. gathered together before entering the mountain. Tion calmly ordered his subordinates. Yes, king. At this time, no one had any objections. Baiwei and the other two immediately began to gather their tribes and unite. In Kong, take your eagles and coordinate in the sky. If there are any changes, immediately use your advantage in the air to attack the enemy. Tion ordered In Kong. Among the four tribes, In Kong could be said to be the most relaxed. With their advantage in the air, they could easily fly over. Yes, king. In Kong took the group of eagles to soar into the sky and began to hover above Sakura and the others. Pairs of sharp eagle eyes began to observe every corner in large numbers. Enter the mountain. With that order, the majestic migration team once again began to move up the mountain. This mountain was actually called Centipede Mountain. As the name implied, there were a large number of centipedes on this mountain. Moreover, the centipedes here were more venomous and ferocious than ordinary centipedes. Any bird or beast on a mountain would be eaten by the centipedes as long as they stayed here. Over time, even ordinary birds and beasts knew how dangerous this mountain was and rarely dared to come close. In the end, it became a real centipede mountain. The centipedes were highly poisonous. When they breathed, the poisonous gas they exhaled condensed into clouds of miasma on the mountain. There wasn't much miasma at the moment, but after a few hundred years, the entire mountain would be shrouded in miasma. In a large cave at the top of the mountain, a gray poisonous gas was emitted from a cave. Looking through the poisonous gas, one could clearly see a huge centipede in front of them. This centipede was quite frightening. It was at least 10 meters long, and its body was connected by segments. Counting carefully, there were a total of 100 segments. Lying in the cave, it looked abnormally ferocious. It could be said to be a peerless poisonous creature. According to legend, centipedes only grew one segment a year. With the lifespan of a centipede, it was quite rare to grow to 30 segments. If it grew to 100 segments, it wouldn't be a spiritual beast with spiritual intelligence. This 100-segment centipede was able to grow to such a terrifying extent today because of a fortuitous encounter. A few decades ago, it had swallowed a purple fruit and slowly gained spiritual intelligence. The 100-jointed centipede lay in the cave, looking out of the cave. It seemed to be reminiscing. Ever since it gained sentience, it had become the king of the centipedes on the mountain. After that, it led a group of centipedes to eat small animals like rabbits and water deer. After eating them, it felt that it was very beneficial. It found that after eating and sleeping, its strength would increase. Moreover, the more it ate, the stronger the target, and the faster its strength would increase. Therefore, it took a group of centipedes to hunt for various birds and beasts on the mountain. In just a few decades, its body increased to 100 segments. It became a 100-segment centipede. Considering the level of intelligence it possessed, it was impossible for it to ponder such profound questions. Therefore, it had no idea that the thing it had consumed was known as blood food among demonic cultivators. Blood food existed in the body, and although there was no special technique to cultivate and refine it, some of it would naturally be absorbed by the body as it slept. That was why the increase in strength happened. It didn't know that. It only felt that after it ate, it would increase its strength when it slept. Therefore, over the years, the centipedes multiplied rapidly, and their numbers became extremely large. It also ate almost everything that could be eaten on the mountain. At this time, staying in the cave, it couldn't help but miss the taste of blood food. Rustle, rustle. At this time, a relatively large centipede crawled into the cave. It wasn't as terrifying as the 100-segment centipede king, but it was still a meter long. After this centipede came in, it began to squeak. Hearing it squeak, the 100-segment centipede king's eyes immediately lit up, revealing a ferocious gleam of excitement. It squeaked a few times at the small centipede. Immediately, the centipede crawled out again. Its speed was quite fast. It didn't know how many legs it had, so it was difficult not to be fast. Patter, patter. Tian led the group of beasts up the mountain carefully, deliberately avoiding the miasma. Every one of them had their ears pricked up. Those ordinary groups seemed to be able to feel the oppressive aura around them as soon as they entered the mountain. Even the monkeys, who had been jumping and jumping all the time, didn't jump around at this time. Instead, they huddled together timidly. It's strange. We're already halfway up the mountain. Why hasn't anything happened yet? The atmosphere is a little different. At this time, Tian took the lead and walked to the front. His eyes constantly scanned the surroundings quickly. As he walked forward step by step, the tigers might burst out from his body and waved in all directions, intending to warn the creatures in the mountain. If they were ordinary birds and beasts, they wouldn't dare to approach easily when they felt the strong tiger's might, the aura of the king of beasts. The mountain they were on now was unusual. He estimated that the creatures on the mountain were definitely not ordinary creatures. Therefore, he didn't let down his guard at all. Now, although they had walked all the way to the mountainside safely, it didn't mean that there was no danger. On the contrary, he felt that this seemed to be the calm before the storm. The oppressive aura reverberated around. Rustle, rustle, rustle. At this moment, suddenly, from all directions, there was a sound of a large number of strange things crawling on the ground, and it was quite dense. All around, the long weeds were swaying violently. The sound came from all directions. Ow! Tian looked up to the sky and let out a shocking tiger's roar. He looked around and was shocked by what he saw. On the ground, in all directions, there were centipedes densely packed. These centipedes were quite large. Each of them was as thick as a baby's arm. They were of different lengths, and there was an extremely large number of them. They rushed out from all directions and surrounded the migration team in an instant. Centipedes, it's actually centipedes. Tian's eyes shone with a cold light. These centipedes surrounded them, but didn't attack immediately. They seemed to be waiting for something. Whoosh! Suddenly, in front of Tian, the densely packed centipedes suddenly opened up a path. 3 centipedes that were 1 to 2 meters long crawled out from the centipedes. They walked to the front and glanced at the surrounded migration team in the middle. There was a murderous look in their eyes. They let out a roar. Immediately, countless centipedes charged toward Tian and the others like a tide. Ow! Tian roared. Immediately, the tribe behind him started to defend. Snakes and centipedes were natural enemies. Under by Susu's lead, they blocked one side. Bai the Wave King let out a long howl and kept stomping on the centipedes with his claws. The apes also waved their claws and attacked. The eagles in the sky were the main force of the attack. They had the advantage in the sky and were the natural nemesis of poisonous creatures like the centipedes. In a short period of time, under the leadership of a few kings, they fought fiercely with the centipedes. However, looking at the tide of centipedes around them, they wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Junbuin, a 100-legged centipede, died but didn't fall down. The centipede's vitality was extremely tenacious. They also had a hard shell, which was their best protection. The 3 giant centipedes in front of Tian moved their countless legs quickly on the ground and pounced toward Tian from 3 directions. These 3 centipedes were beginning to have spirituality. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before they would have spirituality and become spiritual beasts. They had more than 10 segments of their bodies. As long as they had 30 segments, they would become spiritual beasts. Ow! Seeing the 3 giant centipedes pouncing toward him without any fear, they were unusually ferocious. Their eyes were filled with endless ferocity. Instantly, the tiger's eyes turned cold. The pitch-black tail suddenly rose high, like a steel whip, faintly emitting a dark light. It whipped out in an instant. It directly whipped a giant centipede that was attacking him from the side. The place where it whipped happened to be the middle of the centipede. Bang! The outer shell of the centipede was very hard, but after all, they had yet to become a demon. The tail that Sakura pulled out was infused with demonic power, so one could imagine how powerful it was. The outer shell of the giant centipede exploded on the spot, and the slender body that had more than 10 segments was split into two, falling to the ground and wriggling continuously. The 100-legged centipede died but didn't fall down. Even if it was broken into 2 segments, it didn't die immediately. The remaining 2 centipedes, one attacked from the front and the other from the right, bit toward his waist. Ow! Deshurtian's eyes were cold. Looking at the centipedes in front of him, he didn't dodge. He was the king of beasts. There was no need for him to dodge a few giant centipedes. He opened his big tiger mouth and bit the giant centipede that was pouncing toward him in the air. When the giant centipede saw Deshurtian open his mouth wide, its speed in the air became a little faster. It rushed straight toward his mouth. It actually wanted to enter Deshurtian's mouth and bite through his internal organs. Attacking from the inside of the enemy's body was indeed the centipede's specialty. Whoosh! The giant centipede's speed was very fast. Ordinary people's eyes couldn't track it at all. However, in Deshurtian's eyes, there was no concealment to speak of. The giant centipede was about to enter his mouth. Begging for votes. Chapter 46. Kacha. The canines in Deshurtian's mouth were incomparably sharp. When he bit down with all his might, even a stone would be crushed in an instant. The giant centipede's body just happened to pass through his mouth. The giant centipede thought that its speed was very fast and that it could enter Deshurtian's stomach from his throat before he could react. However, Sakura's eyes were extremely sharp. He saw all of its intentions and actions. Just as it entered the tiger's mouth, he opened his mouth and instantly bit down. With a crisp sound, the front half of the centipede was bitten into pieces on the spot. Then, after a few swallowing, the whole centipede was chewed into pieces in his mouth. Gulp! With a sound, he swallowed it into his stomach. Although centipedes were poisonous creatures were often very nutritious. For example, the gallbladder of a snake. Centipedes could be used as medicine. This giant centipede could almost become a spirit beast's poison. After being chewed up and swallowed by Deshurtian, it was simply a great supplement. It was no less than drinking the monkey spirit wine or eating a spirit-gathering pill. Blood food was also the most direct way for a demon cultivator to increase their strength. For example, the 100-segment centipede on the Centipede Mountain was able to grow to 100 segments by eating a large amount of blood food. If it grew to a 101st segment, it could break through to become a demon beast. It was obvious that blood food was also very important. At this moment, the last giant centipede soared into the air. It opened its serrated fangs and bit down on Deshurtian's waist. Pata! Deshurtian didn't care at all. Instead, he looked coldly at the centipede's attack. When the centipede's waist was about to bite him, a crisp sound was heard. The sharp fangs were all broken. The one who was injured wasn't Deshurtian. Instead of biting through the skin, the centipede's fangs were all broken. Roar! The Sakura let out a low roar. The purple king mark on his forehead pulsated unceasingly at this moment, bursting with the supreme majesty of the king of beasts. He opened his big mouth and sucked towards the giant centipede. In a split second, a gust of wind blew in front of him out of nowhere. The giant centipede was bound by a strange power and struggled to fall into the huge tiger's mouth. With a few cracking sounds, this giant centipede was once again like the previous one. It was chewed into pieces. It was swallowed into his stomach. Centipedes are great supplements. After eating 2 giant centipedes in a row, a wave of heat began to rise in his body. His tyrannical body had already absorbed the hidden power and essence of the centipedes. Whoosh! Looking around, although he had already taken care of the 3 giant centipedes, there were too many of them. They were everywhere, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. It was as if the entire mountain had become a sea of centipedes. Although Baiwe and the rest led their people to fight back with all their might, under the tide-like attack of the centipedes, they suffered great losses. In the blink of an eye, Each of the tribes had been bitten by the centipedes. Once bitten, the ordinary animals began to turn black all over. They fell to the ground. Clearly, the centipedes were highly poisonous. Seeing this situation, Tion didn't hesitate. He took a deep breath, and a gust of wind blew in front of him. His already huge tiger body became even bigger in an instant. Roar! The air that he swallowed in his stomach was spat out in an instant. It rushed out of his throat in a special way. In an instant, a huge tiger roar broke the sky like a thunderclap. He didn't use sound waves. Just the power of the roar alone was enough to turn the tide of the battle. Bang, bang, bang! The entire mountain peak trembled violently in an instant. The countless centipedes in the surroundings felt as if a muffled thunder had suddenly sounded in their minds. On the spot, all the centipedes in the surroundings felt a buzzing sound in their heads. Their consciousnesses were shaken, and their entire heads were shattered into pieces and turned into mush. How could an ordinary centipede possibly survive under Tion's tyrannical tiger roar? It was wiped out in one fell swoop. However, just at this moment, a roar suddenly came from the mountain. Within the roar, there was a strong, fishy wind. In almost a blink of an eye, an incomparably huge centipede that was at least 10 meters long and as thick as an adult rushed down. It opened its mouth and spat out a poisonous wind towards Tion. The centipede's carapace was extremely smooth and as thin as a cicada's wing. It was like a sharp curved blade. Its body had 100 segments, which were equivalent to 100 sharp blades. Its entire body was crimson red, and the poisonous gas it exhaled carried a fiery aura. It was as if it was about to spit out fire. Roar! Tion's reaction wasn't slow. When the centipede queen pounced on him, he raised his tiger claw and swung it forward. In an instant, a pitch-black claw mark was aimed at the centipede queen's head. At the same time, the tiger roar didn't stop. Rings of pitch-black sound waves bombarded the centipede queen like a tidal wave. Bang, bang, bang! The centipede king's head was smashed by Sakra's claw. The sharp tiger claw actually scratched out a deep claw mark on its incomparably hard carapace. The sound waves of the tiger's roar unceasingly bombarded its body, causing its carapace to constantly emit a dull rumbling sound. The terrifying power was transmitted into its body. On the spot, the centipede queen's attack on Tion came to a halt. However, the centipede queen was a veteran. It stopped, but it wasn't too far away from Tion. Lying on the ground, its body suddenly became like a long whip. The lower half of its body instantly coiled towards Tion. The blades on the side of its body flashed with a cold light. With these sharp blades, as long as it coiled around its body, even if it was a king with intelligence, without any special abilities, they would be cut in half on the spot. Roar! Tion's tiger body shook, and thick black gas spurted out from countless pores all over his body, instantly enveloping his entire body completely. He took a deep breath, and his originally huge body once again became bigger. His two hind legs heavily stomped on the ground, and his huge tiger body soared into the air, leaping into the air. This leap was just right, just enough to avoid the slender body of the centipede queen and let the body of the centipede queen sweep past Tion's body with a swoosh. Bang! Just as the centipede's body was about to fall, a huge tiger claw swooped down from the sky and pressed down on the centipede's tail. This claw contained a huge amount of demonic energy that Tion had poured into it. With one move, a terrifying power burst forth and pressed the centipede heavily onto the ground. Roar! Tion pressed down on the centipede's last section with one of his tiger claws, while the other tiger claw instantly swung up. Dense demonic energy spewed out, condensing into a huge black tiger claw in front of him. With a loud bang, it struck the last section of the centipede's body where it was connected to the front section. Hiss! How ferocious was Sakra's attack! Moreover, it landed on the joint of every segment of the centipede's body. Without the protection of the carapace, the last segment was forcefully torn apart from the centipede's entire body by the claw on the spot. The intense pain immediately caused the centipede to let out a shocking roar, and a bloody mist filled the air. This centipede queen was truly a ferocious creature. Although it had lost a section of its body suddenly turned around. A red light flashed beside Chertion. An intense pain came from his body. Looking closely, it turned out that the centipede queen had actually turned its body upside down, and in an instant, a huge wound was cut open on the left side of his back. Fresh blood flowed out from the wound and gushed down. In a short confrontation, in just a few breaths of time, the battle between Sakura and the centipede queen had already become incomparably fierce. Even though the time was short, the danger within it was not something that outsiders could understand. A huge wound appeared on Chertion's body, and a section of the centipede queen's body had been cut off. Tragic, extremely tragic. The battle separated, and they stood facing each other from a distance. The surroundings were silent. A large number of centipedes had been killed by Chertion's tiger roar. At this moment, Baiwei and the others had all retreated a distance away. They knew that the battle in front of them was not something that they could interfere in. What a powerful centipede. Its strength is probably at the peak of the demon realm, and it could break through to become a monster at any time. If not for the fact that it doesn't know how to use its monster power, I would be in danger today. Chertion's eyes were cold. Looking at the centipede queen in front of him, he was also shocked. There was actually such a powerful existence that was about to become a monster on this mountain. It was truly terrifying. The centipede queen's eyes were filled with ferocity. With a roar, it was about to charge over. However, at this moment, a red light suddenly appeared in the sky. This flowing light was originally going to fly through the sky, but it seemed to have noticed something unusual below. It actually paused in midair and then appeared above the centipede mountain and stopped. When it stopped, one could see what that flowing light was. It was a middle-aged man wearing a Taoist robe with red edges. His face looked righteous. He was standing on a crimson sword. Even if the sword was stopped, one could still feel the rolling heat waves from the sword. There were faint flames rising on the sword. This man stood on the flying sword and saw Chertion and the centipede queen's figures below. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. He laughed loudly and said, "Luck. I'm really lucky." A red flame centipede, a mutated black tiger, two types of spirit beasts, both of which are extremely rare in the immortal cultivation world. Moreover, they're about to become monster beasts. If I capture them and cultivate them, I might have two more powerful spirit beasts guarding the mountain. I didn't find the celestial fragrance fox king, but I found two spirit beasts first. Coincidentally, I have two beast taming collars. Today, I'll capture you. After that, a light flashed in his hand, and two inconspicuous collars appeared. From where the light flashed, one could see that he was wearing a simple ring on his finger. The collars were taken out from the ring. Recommended book by a friend. Carrying a tree with me. Author's name. Don't drink water zhang and did not farm. Nor did he plant gold and silver. Instead, he planted trees. What he planted was not an ordinary tree, but a mysterious tree. Starting from planting trees, he walked all the way to the peak of life. Planting trees brought about a happy life. Planting trees made him a top-notch expert. Planting trees effortlessly and reaping a lot of benefits. Chapter 47. In the world of cultivators, storage bags were not the only things that could be used to store things. In fact, storage bags were not the lowest type. There were other types of storage treasures, such as storage rings, also known as universal rings. Containing the universe, the space inside was much larger than that of storage bags. This kind of Chinquan ring was very rare for ordinary people. Ordinary people couldn't have it at all. Firstly, the materials needed to refine it were too rare. Secondly, the people who knew how to refine it were even rarer. Therefore, most of the Chinquan rings were passed down from ancient times. Every universal ring could be said to be a symbol of status. Now, the middle-aged man in the air was wearing one. It was not hard to imagine that this person's status was definitely not simple. The middle-aged man held the two collars and looked down at De Chertion and the Centipede Queen. He tossed them lightly, and countless talismans emerged from the collars. The beast collars also began to expand. In the blink of an eye, they became as big as hula hoops. The two beast collars trembled slightly in the air and made a soft sound. A breathtaking and mysterious aura was emitted from the collars. It enveloped the people below. This ring again. What exactly is it? Why do I feel a very dangerous aura from it, as if it is my nemesis? When De Chertion saw the two beast collars above his head, his heart suddenly tightened. It was not the first time he had seen the beast collars. He had seen Zheng Baichuan use them before. However, his tiger roar had shaken him down. He did not expect to see them here again. Although he did not know what this strange ring was, the feeling of threat was constantly beating in his heart. He stared at the beast collars. Every beast collars I use is one less. However, it was worth it to catch these two spiritual beasts. The red flame centipede's attributes are compatible with mine. If I train it well, it may be a great help to me in the future. Fine. The middle-aged man lightly pointed at the beast-controlling collars. In a split second, two beast-controlling collars could be seen flying towards the necks of Sakura and Centipede Queen, respectively. During this process, the talismans on the beast-taming collars broke free from the collars and turned into long ropes made of talismans that quickly wrapped around the two spirit beasts. Once touched by the talisman, it would be impossible to escape. Swish! The beast-controlling collar that flew toward the Centipede King was very successful. Countless talismans instantly wrapped around its body, tightly binding it. No matter how hard it struggled, it could not break free. The beast-controlling collar also successfully wrapped around the Centipede King's neck. Instantly, the Centipede Queen seemed to have lost all its strength and collapsed to the ground. However, how could De Chertion allow the strange hoop to be wrapped around his neck? First, he waved his tiger claw and condensed a pitch-black tiger claw in midair. He slammed it towards the beast collar, but it was quickly disintegrated by the strange talisman. It only made the beast collar pause for a moment. His momentum did not decrease at all. In the blink of an eye, he was right in front of Zhang Xian, right in front of this seemingly irreversible situation. A ribbon appeared out of thin air and floated to the front of the beast collar. With a gentle shake, a seven-colored halo burst forth and swayed on the beast collar. Buzz! The ribbon seemed to contain boundless power, and it sent the collar flying backward on the spot. A strange fragrance floated in the air. A fragrant ribbon. It's the celestial fragrance Fox King. Seeing the ribbon appear, the middle-aged man was not shocked but delighted. He laughed and said, "Celestial fragrance Fox King, I've searched high and low for you, only to find you without any effort. I've been looking for you for so long, but I didn't expect to meet you here. Since you're here, what's the point of hiding?" After he finished speaking, a powerful divine sense instantly burst out from his body and frantically scanned the surroundings. A burst of clear and melodious laughter reverberated in the air. In front of the middle-aged man, the mysterious girl who had always been following behind Sakura suddenly appeared. Looking at the other party, she said, "Green Cloud Oxnose, you chased me for 3 days and 3 nights. I was planning to sneak up on you once, but I didn't expect you to be so shameless as to attack a junior of the demon cultivators." This girl was a rare powerhouse of the demon clan, the celestial fragrance Fox King. Her strength was not inferior to a nascent soul cultivator at all. This time, she had planned to follow De Chertion and secretly observe him for a while. She did not plan to reveal herself in front of De Chertion, but she did not expect that the nascent soul old monster Qin Yun would be unwilling to part with her and search for her nearby. She even let him run into De Chertion and the others. It didn't matter that the Centipede Queen was taken away by Qin Yun, but she could not watch De Chertion be restrained by the beast collar. That was why she made a move at the last moment. When she made her move, she already knew that there would be no peace between her and Qin Yunok's nose. Ah, I found you. A mere spiritual beast is nothing. Celestial Fragrance Fox King, if you know what's good for you, hand over the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box quickly. How can such a treasure be coveted by a demon like you? Qin Yunok's nose scolded loudly with a violent look on his face. Qin Yunok's nose. The Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box was originally found in the Godfall Abyss. Only the worthy can obtain it. I was the first one to obtain it. You chased after me for 3 whole months with the slogan of eliminating demons. You talk about righteousness, but you're just a hypocritical villain. The Celestial Fragrance Fox King snorted disdainfully and said, "The Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box is with me. If you have the ability, come and get it yourself. I like to see what ability you have to take the box from me." After saying that, the Celestial Fragrance Fox King waved the ribbon in her hand. Immediately, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth went wild. Rays of colorful light with a strange fragrance drifted towards Qin Yunok's nose. The fluttering of the ribbon seemed to be able to attract the spiritual energy in the surroundings. Even heaven and earth began to shake. Demonic woman, today is the day you die. Qin Yunok's nose formed a sword seal in his hand. The treasured sword under his feet flew up and trembled violently in front of him. The treasured sword split into 2, then 3. In the blink of an eye, there were thousands of identical treasured swords in the air. They quickly formed a sword wheel and blasted towards the Celestial Fragrance Fox King. Boom, boom, boom. For a moment, there was a series of violent explosions in the air. Terrifying energy surged in all directions and landed on the ground, creating terrifying craters. Bang! A loud explosion shook the sky. The Celestial Fragrance Fox King's ribbon rolled back, and her body turned into a colorful ray of light. She quickly fled into the distance and shouted, "Qin Yunok's nose, your strength is only SOSO. It seems like you won't be able to take the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box. Hee hee. Demonic woman, don't run. Even if I have to go to the ends of the earth, this seat will catch up to you and have you executed by my Qin Yun sword." When old monster Qin Yun saw that the Celestial Fragrance Fox King had actually fled, his face was filled with rage. He didn't care about anything else. First, he put away the Beastmaster collar and the Centipede King that was trapped in it. Then he stepped onto his flying sword and chased after the Celestial Fragrance Fox King. How could he care about Sakura, who was above and below? Humph! Looking at the 2 streaks of light that were rapidly disappearing, Deshirtion let out a heavy breath. The pressure just now was simply too great. This unforeseen event had left him inexplicably shocked. He had personally witnessed the strength of these 2 people. During this period of time, the feeling of strength that had appeared because of his demonic energy had suddenly collapsed. In front of these 2 people just now, his strength was simply like a child's play. There was nothing to be proud of. Strength. It wasn't just ordinary strength. The terrifying deterrence that he had felt from the Beastmaster collar made him clearly understand that in front of a true expert, he was probably just a little thicker than an ant. But in the eyes of others, he was also a plate of meat that could be eaten at any time. Strength. I must become stronger. I don't want to feel as powerless as before. One day, I will become as strong as them. Deshirtion silently swore in his heart. Silently, he encouraged his fighting spirit. His eyes burned as he looked into the distance, engraving the Celestial Fragrance Fox King in his heart. This was already the 2nd time he had seen this mysterious woman with his own eyes. The last time, she had used him to protect the admirable treasure box. However, she had also given him the soul-gathering pill as a reward. It was precisely because of the soul-gathering pill that he had been able to obtain such strength in a short period of time. Therefore, although she had used him, she didn't hold any grudges. Instead, she had given him a chance to grow quickly. This was the 2nd time, and she had actually saved him from Qin Yun. If the Celestial Fragrance Fox King hadn't made a move, Deshirtion could foresee that this time he would have been captured like the centipede queen. Baiwa Susu Yuan Tian, In Kong, hurry up and leave this place. Use your fastest speed to cross this mountain. Di Shirtian only thought about it in his heart. However, he knew that now wasn't the time to think about such unrealistic things. The most important thing now was to quickly leave this place and enter the southern barbaric mountain range. As for strength, he would have it sooner or later. Whoosh! Bai Wei and the others quickly reorganized their respective tribes. After being besieged by the centipede this time, every tribe had suffered considerable losses. However, their vitality hadn't been depleted. Under the leadership of their respective leaders, they all moved forward. Di Shirtian didn't leave immediately. Instead, he took out his storage bag and put away the centipede's body that he had torn off from the 100-jointed centipede. Then, he collected a large portion of the surrounding centipede's corpses. He filled the bag to the brim. The centipede's flesh was a great nourishment. Eating it to cultivate would increase one's vitality even more. Normally, there wouldn't be such an opportunity. How could he not take advantage of it? Moreover, if he ate the centipede's body part, his demonic power would increase greatly. This was because the centipede queen didn't know how to cultivate. Most of the power from its flesh and blood had fused into its flesh. There was a large amount of essence in its flesh and blood. Eating a piece was like eating the flesh of Tang Sung in the Journey to the West. It was greatly nourishing. The competition for the new book rankings is very fierce. There are corpses all over the ground. Brothers, please throw your votes at me so that I can walk further on the new book rankings. Chapter 48. The Centipede Queen had 100 sections, and if one section was torn off by the Sakura, it was equivalent to taking 1% of the centipede's essence and power into his hands. In addition, the 3 large centipedes from before were also about to break through to become spirit beasts, so the flesh and blood in their bodies were also greatly nourished. After eating them, the Sakura's body was still warm, and hot air was circulating in his internal organs. I can't keep the blood food for too long, or the power inside will dissipate. Luckily, I have a storage bag, so I can keep the blood food fresh. That said, I still need to eat it as soon as possible. After we cross this mountain, I'll find a hidden place to rest for now and let Yu and the others rest. I'll eat the centipede queen's flesh and absorb the essence and power inside. Di Shirtian quickly put the centipedes around him into his storage bag. Only when he could take no more did he hurry towards the migration team. With the centipede queen on the centipede mountain, the other animals had no space to live at all. Now that most of the centipedes had been killed by Di Shirtian's roar, and the centipede queen had been taken away by Qing Yun, there was no longer anything that could threaten the migration team on the centipede mountain at the moment. Their journey was smooth as they crossed the mountain. Di Shirtian used his great control over his body to shrink the wounds caused by the centipede queen. Coupled with the nourishment of his demon force around the wounds, it prevented him from bleeding profusely. At the moment, the blood on the wounds had already coagulated. With his ability, there were no major problems now. After passing through the centipede mountain, they walked for a while and found a valley with a water source. The migration team stopped in the valley to rest. Afterwards, they ate some of the prey they had caught and the centipede meat in their storage bags. Most of the animals began to lie down in the valley and close their eyes to rest. Around the valley, there were naturally strong and smart clansmen of various clans guarding it. Not even the slightest movement could escape their eyes. Di Shirtian also used his demonic power to dig out a huge cave in the valley. The Wolf King Yu and the Ape King Yuan Tian guarded the entrance of the cave. He entered the cave and lay down, placing his storage bag in front of him. The centipede queen's flesh contains a large amount of essence. If I eat it, I will definitely be able to quickly recover from my original injuries. The flesh contains 1% of the centipede queen's power. If I absorb it, I might even be able to advance further. Di Shirtian had already temporarily buried the matter of the heavenly fragrance fox monarch and Qing Yun in the depths of his mind. So what if he knew? To him, The two of them were experts whom he admired like mountains. No matter how much he thought about it, it was impossible for his strength to increase out of thin air. It was not common for a pie to fall from the sky. Self-improvement. Only self-improvement was the only way to go about it. Self-improvement was the only way to grasp the trajectory of one's destiny and change the trajectory of the living beings around them. Seeing the heavenly fragrance fox monarch and the others, Deschertien's first thought was not fear, but a strong fighting spirit. He told himself that one day he would be as strong as them, or even stronger than them. As long as his fighting spirit was unwavering, there was nothing in this world that could stop him from becoming stronger. Swoosh! The storage bag flashed, and the corpse of a giant centipede that had been killed by the shock appeared in front of him. Beside it was a huge chunk of the centipede's body. This was the chunk of flesh from the centipede queen. The centipede queen's carapace was relatively tough, but the flesh wrapped in the carapace was relatively tender. Crunch! Deschertien did not hesitate. He first swallowed the corpse of the last giant centipede. His sharp canine teeth completely ignored the carapace and crushed it. In the blink of an eye, the centipede was chewed into minced meat. Such a nutritious centipede. In his mouth, not only did it not have a fishy taste, it even had a unique fragrance. The texture was extraordinarily good. Gulp! After swallowing the giant centipede into his stomach, his powerful body began to digest it. Waves of heat were emitted from his body. It was warm, and the energy in his body faintly produced a sense of excitement. However, Deschertien did not immediately enter into cultivation. Instead, he grabbed the carapace of the centipede queen and used his tiger claws to dig out the centipede flesh from the carapace. The centipede queen's carapace was hard, and the giant centipede's carapace could not be compared to it. Even Deschertien could not swallow it into his stomach. Eating the flesh inside was enough. On the contrary, it was a rather good material for refining weapons. Crunch! After swallowing the centipede queen's flesh and chewing, it tasted 100 times sweeter and more fragrant than the centipede from before. It made one want to eat more. In no time, he swallowed the centipede queen's flesh into his stomach. Boom! The centipede queen was only a step away from becoming a demonic beast. However, it did not know how to cultivate demonic chi. All of its strength was contained within its body. When it swallowed this piece of flesh, the enormous amount of spiritual essence hidden within immediately began to erupt. Waves of ferocious heat were like angry seawater, rapidly surging within its body and gushing out. It was like a blowout. What powerful essence chi! When Deschertien felt it, he was not surprised, but delighted. He quickly closed his eyes and began to circulate the tiger roar technique. He drove the enormous amount of essence chi in his body to circulate in all parts of his body, quickly passing through his meridians. To monster cultivators, blood was one of the most nourishing things in the world. Essence chi was the source of energy in a living creature's body. It was the easiest to absorb and had great benefits to the person who absorbed it. A portion of the essence chi that surged out was driven by the tiger roar technique to circulate in his meridians. A portion of it quickly fused into his flesh and blood. Every time a trace of it fused into his body, the strength of his body increased by a little. At this moment, the countless pores all over his body opened up. Traces of black monster chi continuously gushed out of the pores and condensed into a monster mist in his body. It enveloped his entire body. In the monster mist, Deschertien's body began to change again. What gushed out his pores was not only monster chi, but also the impurities in his body. They were being expelled bit by bit. Every time a part of it was expelled, his body became stronger. Every inch of his body hit a huge amount of power, and his control of his body became more proficient. The fur on the outside was also constantly strengthening. It was one body, and its defensive power naturally became stronger. Huff! Huff! He exhaled a puff of turbid air from his mouth, causing the monster mist around him to surge. This time, The essence chi hidden in the flesh and blood of the centipede queen and the three giant centipedes was really huge beyond imagination. When Di Shirtian started to absorb it, a huge amount of essence chi gushed out of his body one after another. Under such stimulation, the tiger roar technique started to circulate in his meridians at a speed that had never been seen before. With the addition of the essence chi, the monster chi in his meridians began to grow at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. It was increasing almost every moment. Essence chi was the most essential power in a living creature's body. When this huge amount of essence chi was integrated into his body, it also quickly healed the damage that he had suffered before. The damage to his meridians was quickly healed, and they became tougher than before. The monster chi in his body continued to grow under the support of the huge amount of essence chi. That night, Wolf King Baiyu and the others kept their eyes wide open as they guarded the entrance of the cave. They were afraid that something would disturb the king in the cave. After witnessing Di Shirtian's strength, the four leaders had already completely submitted to him from the bottom of their hearts. It could be said that they were extremely respectful. They really knew their place and treated Di Shirtian as the real king. Naturally, they would not let anything happen to disturb this place. When they did things, they did their best. At this moment, the scene in the cave suddenly changed. Outside, the dense black demonic fog that enveloped the Sakura suddenly started to roll violently. In an instant, it suddenly expanded and hit the surrounding mountain walls in an instant. Boom! This impact was unusually fierce. It directly caused the entire cave to shake violently a few times. Booming sounds could be heard in the cave. Hum hum hum. This was not the end. The monster mist that burst out did not dissipate. Instead, it quickly gathered and condensed into pitch-black crescent-shaped light blades in the surroundings. The light blades trembled slightly and emitted waves of soft hums. Cold light flickered on the light blades, and they quickly danced up and down in the surroundings, drawing out streaks of sharp cold light. There were a total of 10 light blades like this. They flew up and down around Di Shirtian, displaying their sharp attack power. Disperse! Di Shirtian shouted in his heart. The 10 light blades trembled violently and quickly dispersed. In the blink of an eye, they once again turned into balls of monster mist and quickly entered his body through the pores on his body. Good. I didn't think that the Centipede King would really help me this time. A piece of flesh allowed my monster chi to directly break through to the late third layer. It was vigorous and unending, almost filling my meridians to the brim. It also allowed me to have an even stronger control over my monster chi. I comprehended the attack method of the monster mist blade. My strength increased greatly. With this, I have even more confidence that I can make a name for myself in the southern barbaric mountain range. It's even more beneficial for me to accumulate strength. Feeling the surging monster chi in his body, Di Shirtian almost had an impulse to roar towards the sky. The benefits he obtained from eating the Centipede King's meat this time were truly too shocking. First of all, not only did it allow his body to become even more powerful than before, the injuries that he originally suffered within his body had now been completely healed. There was not a trace of hidden danger. Moreover, the monster chi in his entire body had increased by a large amount. The enormous monster chi had practically filled all the meridians in his body. Now he could almost feel the tyrannical strength within his body at all times. He had a feeling that if he were to fight with the Centipede King again, he would be completely able to destroy it without being injured. Those with votes, please help me out and throw in a few votes. Chapter 49. If it was said that he was in the early stage of the third layer, when all the meridians in his body were connected, then now he had already broken through to the late stage of the third layer. When all the meridians in his body were filled to the brim with demonic energy, he would have reached the peak of the third layer. At that time, if he wanted to take another step forward, he would need to open up a demonic dwelling. Opening up a demonic dwelling was equivalent to advancing into a demonic beast. At that time, whether it was demonic energy or his own strength, they would all receive a huge leap in improvement. This kind of improvement was the difference between heaven and earth. It could be said that the current Tion had already taken a huge step towards becoming a demonic beast. What was truly joyous was that after his breakthrough, he could control the demonic energy in his body with even greater ease. Thus, he suddenly had a strange thought. The sharp blades on the edge of the queen centipede's carapace were indeed quite frightening. They were incomparably sharp, even with his strong tiger body. After coming into contact with them, a huge wound would instantly appear on his body. This kind of attack power was absolutely frightening to the point of sharpness. If not for the fact that his strength was not weak, and that he knew how to use demonic energy better than the queen centipede, he was afraid that he would be at a disadvantage when fighting with the queen centipede. If he was slightly careless, he could possibly be instantly dismembered by those sharp blades. Thus, he was thinking whether or not the demonic mist outside his body could also be converted from defense to offense. Once Tion thought of this possibility, he first simulated every step in his mind to see if he could condense it. After thinking it through, he used his control over the demonic mist to compress it bit by bit towards the center. Compress, compress, and compress again. Compressing a large amount of demonic energy towards the same place would cause the originally mist-like demonic energy to begin to condense into a solid substance. Then, under his control, it would form streaks of sharp blades of light. Each of these blades of light possessed an attack power that was not at all as strong as the blades beside the queen centipede. The attacks of these blades of light were enough to instantly kill the two Foundation establishment cultivators he had encountered in the past. Because they were formed from demonic energy, Tion directly named this attack method Demonic Mist Blade. With the Fiendish Mist Blade, I will have another method of attack in the future. He no longer needed to be like before, where he didn't even have the means to attack when he encountered an enemy. The Tiger Roar sound wave is powerful, but it also consumes a lot of demonic energy. With my strength, using it 10 times in a row would exhaust all my demonic energy. Now that I have the demonic mist blade, not only is its attack power strong, it also consumes less demonic energy than the Tiger Roar sound wave. Sakura stood up, and with a shake of his body, a pitch-black demonic aura gushed out, forming a dense demonic fog. The demonic fog rolled violently and quickly condensed. In the blink of an eye, it once again formed 10 pitch-black demonic fog blades. One of the demon mist blades issued a soft cry. Then a pitch-black blade light was drawn in the air. Then it bombarded the stone wall in front of them. Poof! The demonic mist blade simply ignored the toughness of the stone wall and easily pierced through it. Moreover, it left behind a terrifying blade mark on the stone wall that was at least several meters deep. Furthermore, the demonic mist blade did not dissipate. Instead, it flew out of the stone wall and returned to Tion's side. It continued to fly up and down. It appeared to be quite agile. One could already see how powerful it was from its attack power. After controlling the demon mist blade to fly around him for a while, Tion was somewhat dissatisfied. There are still some flaws. From forming the demon mist to condensing the demon mist blade, it takes a total of 4 to 5 seconds. This time is too long. In battle, even a single second is enough to change the tide of the battle. I have to shorten this time. It would be best if I could condense it with just a thought. At that time, this demon mist blade would become a true offensive weapon. Tion pondered in his heart. This flaw had to be overcome. After all, in battle, the enemy would not wait for you to condense the demon mist blade. He was afraid that before you could condense the demon mist blade, the enemy's attack would have already arrived. This would be an extremely huge flaw. However, knowing this was one thing. If he wanted to shorten this time, he would need to practice again and again. As the saying goes, practice makes perfect. Only by practicing this step directly to the bone, with just a thought, the body would be able to condense the demon mist blade as if it was a conditioned reflex. At that time, this attack method would truly begin to be perfected. According to his plan, this demon mist blade method still had considerable potential to be unearthed in the future. Right now, he could only condense 10 blades. When he made a breakthrough in the future, he might be able to condense 100, 1,000, or even in the end, with just a thought, tens of thousands of powerful light blades would appear outside his body. That kind of attack was truly powerful. This time, the test caused a bit of a commotion. Bai Yu, Ing Kong, and the others all entered the cave together. When they saw the demon mist blade dancing around Di Shitian's body, their eyes were filled with the power of their king. King! Bai Yu and the others stood in front of Di Shitian and bowed respectfully. Whoosh! He quickly dispersed the demon mist blade back into demon mist and absorbed it back into his body. Looking at the 4 subordinates in front of him, he also noticed the reverence and longing in their eyes. He nodded and said, "As long as you do your jobs well, after we settle down in the southern barbaric mountain range, I will slowly teach you some things. At that time, you will also have a powerful force like this king." The best way to subdue people was to use a combination of kindness and authority. This was something he had thought about a long time ago. His own strength wasn't considered strong. Only when the people around him became strong together and formed a force could it be considered truly strong. Therefore, Di Shitian never planned to hide anything from Bai Yu and the others. Teaching them cultivation was something that would happen sooner or later. "Thank you, King." Bai Yu and the others were overjoyed and bowed respectfully together. "All right, now isn't the time to talk about this. We're still on the path of migration. This time, we've already encountered a centipede spirit. We don't know how many dangers lie ahead. We can't be careless in the slightest. Quickly go out and let your tribe eat their fill. Then, we'll continue to advance towards the southern barbaric mountain range according to the arrangement we made at the beginning. We must reach our destination as soon as possible. Right now, Di Shitian couldn't wait to find a place to settle down. After breaking through to the late stage of the 3rd layer, he only needed a period of time to consolidate. With the assistance of the spirit-gathering pills and monkey wine, he would be able to break through to the peak stage very quickly. At that time, he would open up the demon palace in one go and become a demon beast. Then, he would be able to establish a foothold in the southern barbaric mountain range. "Yes, King." Bai Yu and the others left the cave with excited hearts. However, Di Shitian didn't relax. Instead, he began to practice the demon mist blade that he had figured out. Time after time, he would condense, disintegrate, condense, and disintegrate again. He continuously practiced this action in a cycle. Actually, if the heavenly incense fox monarch saw his current state, she would probably instantly cry out in surprise. Because in the demon clan, being able to research this kind of attack method on their own when they were at his level was an extremely inconceivable thing. Moreover, even if others had the same level of strength as him, they would absolutely be unable to research this kind of demon mist blade. Even if they could, they wouldn't be able to do it. There was no other reason. Other than Di Shitian, other demon clans wouldn't be able to have such precise control. It far exceeded the spiritual power and demon consciousness of ordinary demons. Only with powerful spiritual power could he have the ability to compress the demon mist, compress, and compress it again to form a light blade. Moreover, he could control it to launch an attack. Just this alone was already a huge gap that ordinary demon clans couldn't cross. Therefore, the demon mist blade was definitely Di Shitian's unique technique at this time. Time passed by as he practiced again and again. In the valley, after all the tribes had finished eating, Di Shitian also stopped practicing. He led the huge migration team and continued to advance towards the southern barbaric mountain under the illumination of the morning sun. The Wolf King led the pack of wolves to scout ahead. The Ape Clan was in the middle, and the Snake Clan was at the back. In the sky, a group of eagles was constantly circling, occasionally letting out eagle cries to inform the front of the situation and to act as the migration team's eyes. The combination was just right. Along the way, they hurried along at their fastest speed. They had just passed through the Centipede Mountain, and there was no existence stronger than the Centipede Mountain nearby. As long as they felt the domineering tiger aura that Di Shurtion deliberately emitted, all the ferocious beasts would avoid him early on. While walking, Di Shurtion's mind was constantly thinking about problems. Some were how to perfect the demon Mistblade, and some were how to assemble the huge jigsaw puzzle on the Imperial Treasure Box. His body was walking, but his mind was on these problems. He didn't waste any time. He had already found some clues about the Imperial Treasure Box. That jigsaw puzzle, as it was perfected bit by bit, had already begun to reveal some clues. Jigsaw puzzles were like this. The more difficult it was at the front, but as long as a certain part was put together, it was equivalent to finding the key to the puzzle. Around this key, he could complete the jigsaw puzzle and finally open the treasure box. Now, Di Shurtion was simulating in his mind. After he had some results, when he arrived at the southern barbaric mountain range and settled down, he could begin to solve the jigsaw puzzle and uncover the secret of the treasure box. In a mountain forest, they ate the wind and ate the dew. When the sun rose, they left, and when the sun set, they stopped to rest. They didn't waste any time. With the guidance of the group of eagles, they crossed mountains and rivers. After half a month, they had already covered most of the distance. Along the way, they encountered many accidents, but with Di Shurtion's help, they were resolved one by one. Roar! However, just as the journey was smooth, Eagle Kong suddenly let out a high-pitched roar in the sky as a warning. Eagle Kong's huge body circled a few times in the air. With a swoosh, it dove down toward Di Shurtion's location. Brothers, I'm rushing up the new book list. This is the last week. After this week, I'll be off the list next week. I hope everyone can help and give me recommendations. Let's see how far I can go on the new book list. Chapter 50. Something's happening up ahead. As soon as he heard Ing Kong's cry, Di Shurtion, who was below, heard a thump in his ears. He knew that something must have happened in front. Otherwise, it was only in the afternoon, and there was still a long time before evening, so he couldn't have easily descended from the sky. On the other hand, such an abnormal situation, needless to say, must mean that something had happened in front. Sure enough, Ing Kong descended from the sky and said, "King, there are 2 Xioshin cultivators in front of you that you have told us about." His words shocked people to death. As soon as he opened his mouth, Sakura was startled. He had a deep impression of immortal cultivators. The ones he had met in the Tiger Hill mountain range were not very powerful. Whether it was the princess of Chu Yun, Zheng Baichuan, or Li Xiangshan, they were just small cultivators who had just started cultivating. Even if they had powerful backgrounds, they had very little experience in fighting. That was why they seemed so weak under his attack. Even if they were cultivators in the late stage of chi refining, Di Shurtion wouldn't have been able to deal with them so easily. As for the 2 foundation establishment cultivators from the Li family, they were scared away by the overbearing sound waves of the tiger's roar. If they were to really fight, he would not be able to defend himself at all. It was because he knew that he was still too weak to fight against the deep-rooted immortal cultivators. That was why he led his men to migrate. At this time, he didn't want to fight against cultivators. Di Shurtion's eyes narrowed when he heard that there were cultivators up ahead. He asked, "Ing Kong, why are there cultivators here?" "Were they?" "Your Majesty, I only saw 2 cultivators fighting a bull. The bull was covered in blood. I'm afraid it can't hold on any longer. They're not far ahead." Ing Kong spread his wings and pointed to the front. "Lead the way. We'll go and take a look. The other clans will stay here for now. Baiwe, Susu, you 3 take care of your clans." Di Shurtion's eyes lit up as he gave the order on the spot. "How?" Ing Kong raised his head and let out a high-pitched cry. His huge wings flapped quickly, creating a gust of wind that blew the leaves on the ground everywhere. His huge body rushed into the clouds and flew forward quickly. Di Shurtion stomped heavily on the ground with his 2 hind legs. His burly tiger body leaped forward quickly. He ran forward with a speed that was not inferior to Ing Kong's. The cultivators are fighting a bull. A bull that can make a cultivator fight is definitely not an ordinary one. Maybe it's a spiritual beast with spirituality. I have to go and take a look. If possible, I can save the bull at the right time. Maybe I could take another subordinate. As Sakura ran forward, he was thinking quickly in his mind. He wanted to increase his strength. This strength referred not only to his own strength, but also to the strength of the people around him. If there was a chance, he definitely wouldn't mind letting a few more spiritual beasts like Baiyu and the others who had their own spirituality under his body. This could be regarded as a foundation. Moreover, he was destined to be enemies with the immortal cultivators. If he had the chance to kill a few immortal cultivators, he might be able to collect more treasures. He was quite interested in every item of the immortal cultivators. Killing Li Xiangchen gave him a storage bag and a lot of treasures. If there was a chance to kill a cultivator, he would not let it go. Under the lead of Ing Kong, it didn't take long for Sakura to pass through a mountain forest, only to hear that in a valley, there was a burst of fierce fighting sounds that kept ringing out. There were even cow cries echoing in the valley. It's here. When Sakura heard this, he knew that the place Ing Kong was talking about should be here. He didn't say much and used his speed to quickly pass through the entrance of the valley. After entering the valley, he quickly scanned the surroundings and found a huge rock. He jumped over and hid his body behind the rock. He controlled his aura so that it did not leak out. After doing this, he poked his head out and looked into the valley. In the valley, the first thing that caught his eyes were the two cultivators. One of them left a deep impression on him. That person was quite young, about 20 years old. He was dressed in snow-white clothes and carried an ancient sword on his back. This ancient sword was very strange. It was crystal clear and seemed to be made of some strange crystal. On the hilt, there was a divine dragon's head. It was vivid and lifelike. Just by looking at it, one could feel a boundless deterrence from it. On top of it, there were mysterious lines. These lines formed many profound talismans. It added to the mysterious aura of the ancient sword. The combination of the man and the sword created an indescribable harmony and charm. The sword was extraordinary, and so was the man. To say that this young man looked like Pan and would be demeaning. In this world, there were very few men who could look like him. He was handsome, but not seductive. He had the ability to make women fall in love with him as soon as they saw him. He was extraordinarily handsome and elegant. However, he did not have the natural arrogance that many cultivators would have. Instead, he had a very calm expression, and a kind of awe-inspiring righteousness surrounded him. It was as if he represented the righteous path of heaven and earth. This feeling was very strange and unfathomable. It was as if no matter where he went, people could see that he was the main character. He was born to attract people's eyes and attention. His cultivation was not very high. He was only in the 10th layer of Qi refinement, the late stage of Qi refinement. The other person was dressed in green. Although he was also handsome, the light on him could not be compared to the young man next to him. It was as if he was born to serve as a foil to the young man. He was fighting with a red bison. The bison's body was already covered with wounds of various sizes. Blood splattered on the ground, dyeing a large patch of the ground red. It was breathing heavily from its nose, spitting out little sparks. Its red eyes were staring at the two people in front of it fiercely. There was also a strong hatred in its eyes. It was as if it hated the two people in front of it so much that it could not live under the same sky. Who is this cultivator? Tian looked at the young man in white and was shocked. He suddenly had a feeling that this person was not simple in the cultivation world. Moreover, it seemed that he would be entangled with this person in the future. It was as if he would be his old enemy. Looking behind the Red Bull, he saw a calf that was much smaller than the Red Bull lying coldly on the ground. On its throat, a sharp sword mark was clearly visible. Blood had formed a blood pool on the ground. There was no trace of life. Obviously, it was already dead. From the looks of it, this calf should be the Red Bull's child, and it was killed by the two cultivators in front of them. Thinking about it this way, It was no wonder that its eyes were filled with deep hatred and ferocity. Even if its body was covered with wounds, it still stared at the two cultivators. Ow! The Red Bull's eyes were red. Suddenly, two pillars of fire shot out from its nose. Like two fire snakes, they quickly rolled towards the green-robed cultivator in front of it. The pillars of fire whistled past, causing the temperature in the air to rise sharply. Evil beast, why haven't you been killed yet? Black Eye's talisman. When the green-robed cultivator saw the two pillars of fire, his expression changed. He flipped his hand, and two spirit talismans appeared. He poured his spiritual power into the talismans. Suddenly, the spirit talismans flashed and turned into two clouds of ice mist in front of him. They collided with the two pillars of fire. After a fierce rumble, the pillars of fire melted the ice mist and quickly rolled towards the green-robed cultivator. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of him. Seeing this, the green-robed cultivator's expression couldn't help but change. He quickly shouted, "Eldest senior brother, this fireball is so powerful. I can't hold it anymore. Eldest senior brother, please kill this mad bull. It will help increase the power of your demon-slaying sword." As he spoke, he quickly took out a few spirit talismans and stuck them on his body. Asterisk schwa. Asterisk layers of golden light emerged from his body. In the blink of an eye, it covered his entire body, making him look like a golden man. He had used a Vajra talisman. When the pillars of fire hit him, they roared and shook the golden light shield around him violently. Moreover, the pillars of fire would explode and shatter, blowing away the Vajra talisman on the spot. Asterisk clang. Asterisk at this time, the white-robed youth saw this and shook his head slightly. He extended his right hand and lightly pointed at the ancient sword on his back. Suddenly, there was a clear sound of a sword ringing. The ancient sword was unsheathed and swung at the two pillars of fire. Immediately, a sword light appeared in front of the pillars of fire and extinguished them in the blink of an eye. Junior brotherling, you need to cultivate diligently in the future. A fireball that hasn't even become a monster beast was able to force you into such a dangerous situation. If this were to be seen by others, it would bring shame to our high heaven's sex name. If you encounter a monster beast, you have to kill it. The white-robed youth had a dignified appearance. He was so perfect that he looked like a person in a painting. However, the words he spoke carried a sense of sharpness and sternness. "Ha! Eldest senior brother, how can this junior brother compare to you? You have to know that in the cultivation world, you are a genius with a rare heaven spirit root. Moreover, with the help of Honored Master, you use the only piece of profound heaven stone in the sect to refine this life artifact, the demon-slaying sword. With senior brother strength, you can even fight against a foundation establishment cultivator." When the green-robed cultivator saw that the fire bull's attack was neutralized, he couldn't help but laugh at the white-robed youth. There was a trace of envy in his voice. His eldest senior brother was not an ordinary person. He had the heaven spirit root, one of the best cultivation aptitudes in the cultivation world. When he cultivated, his speed of cultivation would make most people die of shame. Moreover, not only was his aptitude extremely high, but that demon-slaying sword. Chapter 51. It was even more extraordinary. In this world, the magic tools used by cultivators could be divided into 3 levels: magic tools, magic treasures, and spirit treasures. Among them, magic tools were of the lowest grade and were suitable for low-level cultivators, such as chi condensation and foundation establishment cultivators. However, their power far exceeded the limits of the secular world. As for magic tools, they were also divided into different grades. For example, low-grade magic tools, mid-grade magic tools, high-grade magic tools, and even top-grade magic tools that were comparable to magic treasures. The other grades were also divided in the same way. Logically speaking, in the immortal cultivation world, the number of magic tools was the highest. This was because lower-level cultivators usually had more magic tools than higher-level cultivators. Another reason was that the materials needed to refine magic tools were far too precious. Furthermore, one had to have a corresponding cultivation level. At the very least, one had to be at the core formation stage before they could start refining magic tools. Think about it. In this world, how many cultivators were able to cultivate to the core formation stage? The materials needed to refine magic treasures were even more precious. Often, a cultivator would only be able to find enough materials to refine one magic treasure in half a year. Thus, the value and rarity of magic treasures could be imagined. However, in this world, there was another way to refine magic treasures. That was to nurture a natal magic tool. What was a natal magic tool? It was a magic tool that was nurtured using one's own blood essence and fused with one's own essence, energy, and spirit. This kind of magic tool could be said to have an inseparable relationship with its owner. If the magic tool was destroyed, its owner would also suffer a great deal of damage. This kind of damage might be difficult to repair in a lifetime. The mystical and powerful aspects of a life origin magic tool made many people rush to nurture their own life origin magic tool. Firstly, the power of a life origin magic tool was often more powerful than a magic tool of the same level. In a battle in the cultivation world, even if it was just a little bit stronger, it would still be a great advantage. Secondly, the key to a life origin magic artifact was to nurture it. Nurture was to use one's own spiritual energy to continuously nourish the magic artifact, as well as collect various precious materials to fuse into the magic artifact. This way, the magic artifact could slowly become stronger and increase its own grade. If a low-grade natal immortal treasure was nurtured well, it could transform into a high-grade immortal treasure or even a supreme-grade immortal treasure. If one could find a certain precious material and fuse it, perhaps it could transform into a Dharma treasure in one fell swoop. And if the natal magic tool continued to be nurtured, it could transform into a natal spiritual treasure. It was this kind of limitless possibilities that made many cultivators scramble for this kind of practice of nurturing magic tools. Unfortunately, only a few cultivators were able to truly nurture magic tools. The demon-slaying sword was refined from profound heavenstone and various precious materials. It was then refined into a natal magic tool by the white-clothed youth. The materials used to refine this magic tool were too good. Once it was refined, it was already a top-grade magic tool. As long as he nurtured it carefully, it could definitely become a natal magic tool when he broke through to the core formation stage. My demon-slaying sword has a demon refining formation engraved by Master. After killing spirit beasts and demons, their souls will be swallowed into the sword and refined to increase the power of the demon-slaying sword. The more demons it kills, the stronger the demon-slaying sword will be. Watch me kill this fireball. The white-clothed youth looked at the demon-slaying sword floating in front of him. His eyes revealed a look as if he was looking at the woman he loved. His fingers shot out and pointed at the demon-slaying sword. Buzz! In an instant, a slight tremor could be heard on the sword body. A snow-like sword light burst forth from the sword. Like a white chain, it instantly rolled towards Huan Yo's neck. The sword ray was incomparably sharp. From afar, one could feel the cold air emitted from it. As expected of a top-grade natal magic tool, its power was comparable to some low-grade magic tools. Roar! The fireball's eyes were red. It let out a roar, and its nostrils suddenly enlarged. Two crimson pillars of fire that were twice as thick as before shot out from his nostrils. They transformed into two solid fire serpents in front of him and rushed towards the sword light. Boom! This fire pillar was an innate ability of the fireball. Its power was not weak at all. It was already close to the realm of a demon beast. It wouldn't take long for it to become a demon beast, and its strength would increase greatly. Then, its power would not be any weaker than a cultivator in the late stage of the chi refining stage. The fire pillar it spat out could burn a cultivator in the chi refining stage to ashes. Its power could be said to be quite great. However, when it collided with the sword light from the monster's slaying sword, The sword light was incomparably sharp. It didn't stop at all as it slashed a path through the pillar of fire. In the end, the sword light only dimmed slightly. Its direction didn't change as it quickly swept towards the firebull's neck. Roar! The firebull went crazy. Its eyes were so red that it was about to bleed. The bull lowered its head, and the two sharp horns on its head stood up. Its body moved forward and charged towards the sword ray. Boom! The horns were the hardest part of the bull's body. For a mutated beast like the firebull, it was even harder. When it collided with the sword ray, there was a loud bang. The sword ray was immediately dispersed. However, the firebull's body was also knocked back by this collision. Its 4 iron hooves drew 4 large marks on the ground. Oof. A mere spirit beast wants to struggle in front of my demon-slaying sword. Demons deserve to die. Go! When the white-clothed young man saw that the sword ray was unable to kill the firebull, his face immediately turned cold. He pointed in front of him again. Buzz! Suddenly, the demon-slaying sword trembled again and burst out a sparkling sword ray. With endless deterrence, it directly used its body to slash at the firebull. This time, no matter how hard the bull's horns were, they would be cut off. Roar! The firebull felt the danger. Its iron hooves kept digging into the ground. A thick layer of red light appeared on the bull's horns on its head. It was about to charge forward like last time. Swoosh! At this moment, a pitch-black blade of light broke through the air without warning. With an incredible speed, it instantly slashed at the demon-slaying sword. Bang! The white-clothed young man was obviously not prepared for such an accident. The ancient sword that was originally going to slash at the firebull was bombarded by the terrifying attack power contained in the blade of light. The sword trembled and emitted a soft sound. The ancient sword was blasted dozens of feet away. Who is it? The white-clothed young man's eyes instantly turned cold. He turned his head and looked in the direction of the blade of light. He reached out and grabbed the demon-slaying sword in his hand. He quickly swung the sword at the huge stone not far away. Immediately, countless sparkling and translucent sword lights whizzed toward the stone. Boom, boom, boom. The stone was just an ordinary stone. How could it withstand the power of the demon-slaying sword? It was immediately crushed by the sword rays. Roar! A tyrannical tiger's roar resounded in the valley without any warning. The tiger's roar shook the sky like a thunderclap, causing the entire valley to tremble violently. A pool in the valley exploded on the spot, and a water column soared to the sky, reaching a height of 30 feet. The sword rays that were rushing towards the sky bore the brunt of the impact and were directly shattered. After the stone was shattered, a gigantic black tiger appeared in front of them. This black tiger was incomparably huge, and its body emitted a majestic aura. It was the king of all beasts, and on its forehead, there was a purple king mark that was like a flame, and it seemed to be alive. It looked breathtaking. An invisible pressure swept into the valley like a tidal wave. This black tiger was none other than D. Shirtion. He observed from the side for a while. In his heart, he had a general understanding of the situation in the valley. It should be that these two immortal cultivators killed the firebull's child first. That was not enough. They even wanted to kill the firebull. Although the conversation between the two was only a few words, he guessed a lot of things from it. The white-clothed youth was holding a powerful magic weapon. Moreover, this magic weapon could absorb the essence of all kinds of creatures and refine the power of the essence for the demon-slaying sword to absorb. It increased the power of the ancient sword. The matter was very obvious. These two immortal cultivators were obviously out to find those spiritual beasts with spiritual nature. Demon-slaying sword, slay demons. These two words had clearly stated their intentions. Immortal cultivators really have the attitude of killing strange creatures. This firebull can spit out flames. It is a mutant among the spiritual beasts. Since I saw it, I can't let it be killed. If I take it under me, it can increase my strength. Almost in the blink of an eye, Yifeng had already made up his mind and made a decision in his heart. Therefore, when he saw that the white-clothed youth was going to kill the fire bull, his mind moved. Suddenly, a strong demonic aura emerged from his body and formed a demonic mist. Then, it quickly condensed into 10 sharp demonic mist blades. One of them, under his control, bombarded the demon, slaying sword on the spot, and blasted it away. Hey, there's actually a spiritual beast here. What is this light blade? Is it its innate ability? The white-clothed youth's surname was Zhong Yunfei. His aptitude for immortal cultivation was top-notch. He was born in a small mountain village. When he was 8 years old, his parents were eaten by a spiritual beast that rushed out of the mountains. Fortunately, the cultivators of the High Heaven sect passed by and saved him. They also killed the spiritual beast. However, that experience caused him to hate demonic beasts. When he stepped onto the path of cultivation, he swore in his heart that as long as he succeeded in his cultivation, he would kill any demonic beast he met. He would kill all the demonic beasts in the world. His hatred for demonic beasts was obvious. Therefore, even a magic weapon in his hand was named Demon Slaying Sword. Back then, my parents were eaten by a demonic tiger. Now, there's a black tiger here. Fine, today I, Zhong Yunfei, will enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and kill you, this demonic tiger. Zhong Yunfei's eyes were cold. Please recommend me. I have a lot of recommendations and collections. Chapter 52. Senior Apprentice Brother. This black tiger is even more powerful than this fire bull. My head is buzzing from its roar. We can't be careless. Just use the demon execution sword technique and kill it in one fell swoop. That junior brotherling shook his head. Just now, the tiger roar that Sakura let out was too sudden, and he simply didn't have the slightest bit of defense. On the spot, his head was buzzing and his complexion had turned pale. Zhong Yunfei's cultivation had reached the 10th layer of qi refining, while his was only at the 8th layer of qi refining. He was about to break through from the middle stage of qi refining to the late stage of qi refining. How could he resist the tyrannical tiger roar coming from Sakura's mouth? The roar caused his blood to boil and his face to turn pale. Junior Apprentice Brother Ling, don't worry. It's just a demon tiger. It hasn't even become a demon beast yet. With the power of the demon execution sword, no matter how powerful it is, it won't be able to escape from my sword. Zhong Yunfei looked at Di Shirtian. He thought back to the time when he saw his parents die under the tiger's jaws. A layer of cold, murderous intent appeared on his body. Sword fingers burst out from his right hand, and in a split second, the demon beheading sword soared into the sky. It trembled violently in midair, and a crisp sword hum was emitted from the sword body. The sparkling and translucent sword light spurted out several feet long, and within the sword light, there seemed to be a talisman that was about to fly out. It temporarily gave up on the firebolt at the side and transformed into a sparkling and translucent sword that rolled toward Sakura. The demon execution sword was extremely fast. In a flash of white light, the sword had already appeared in front of Di Shirtian. Roar! Indra's eyes were cold as he stared at the demon-slaying sword. From this sword, he could feel a sense of danger that came from his soul. It was as though this sword had a restraining effect on him. Although this aura was still very weak, it still caused a deep sense of vigilance to rise in his heart. Destroy it. In an instant, Sakura had already made up his mind. He only saw that the 10 demonic mist blades that were revolving around his body trembled 3 times in a row. 3 pitch-black light blades broke through the air, as if they were real. They respectively appeared at the places where the demon-slaying sword was going to pass through and collided with the ancient sword. Bang, bang, bang. The demonic mist blade was formed by Di Shirtian, continuously compressing and condensing his demonic qi. Although it seemed to be formed by formless demonic qi, when it was truly condensed, it was not inferior to a real blade in the slightest. Instead, it was sharper. Under his control, it could be used flexibly. The strength of its attack was definitely not below that of a celestial artifact of a cultivator. 3 blades in a row tore through the air and bombarded the demon-slaying sword. These 3 demon mist blades were not without care. One slashed at the center of the ancient sword, one blocked the ancient sword light, and the last one bombarded the ancient sword's hilt. Humph. The light blades did indeed blast my demon-slaying sword away the first time. However, did you think I wouldn't be prepared? Break for me. Zhong Yunfei had clearly predicted that Di Shitian would use the demonic mist blade to block his attack. When he saw the 3 light blades bombarding the ancient sword, his body trembled slightly. However, he still let out a soft shout. Buzz! The demon-slaying sword was Zhong Yunfei's natal magic artifact. Its grade was directly in the top tier of magic artifacts. Its power was not inferior in the slightest to a magic artifact refined by a core formation stage cultivator. When the demonic mist blade struck, the sword suddenly burst forth with a layer of sparkling and translucent sword light. An enormous amount of sword chi spewed out from the sword. Every strand was incomparably sharp. When it collided with the demonic mist blade, it actually shattered the 3 light blades on the spot. The sword chi was like a rainbow. It whistled as it swept towards Di Shitian. Roar! Di Shitian's mind trembled. He finally experienced the strength of immortal cultivators. The power of a magic artifact could be so great. It actually disintegrated the demonic mist blade in an instant with sword chi alone. However, although he was shocked, he was not afraid. His eyes became increasingly calm. He let out a low roar. Immediately, he saw the remaining 7 demonic mist blades flying up and down around him. They quickly drew streaks of light in the air. However, they didn't continue to rush towards the beheading demon sword. Instead, in front of Sakura, they collided together at the same time. Like liquid, the 7 demon mist blades actually fused together mysteriously at this moment. Almost in the blink of an eye, a waning moonlight blade that was no less than 5 to 6 meters in length formed in front of him. Slash! After the enormous demonic mist blade formed, it did not stop for even a moment and slashed towards the demon-slaying sword with a loud bang. Bang! The enormous blade formed by the 7 demonic mist blades was powerful. It was not as simple as a simple combination. Around the blade, threads of black chi were emitted. With one slash, a large amount of sword chi was shattered on the spot. When it hit the demon-slaying sword, an enormous amount of demonic chi poured out. And the demon-slaying sword was directly thrown back by the slash. The sword's body was constantly trembling. The demon-slaying sword was a natal dharma artifact. This powerful attack also caused considerable damage to Zhong Yunfei. He let out a muffled groan, and a trace of blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. However, his hands did not stop. He quickly formed a sword seal and shouted, "Demon-slaying sword technique. Jade Lotus descends to dust, slaying evil." Wong. Zhong Yunfei formed the sword technique. Immediately, he saw that the demon-slaying sword's body suddenly blazed with sword light. It was like a crystal sun. In this light, the ancient sword that was wrapped in it could no longer be seen. However, between heaven and earth, a vast pressure suddenly appeared. It was like a mountain. In this sparkling sword light, a strange scene appeared. Strands of sword light and sword chi transformed into jade lotuses of various sizes. They looked incomparably holy and gave off a miraculous power that could cleanse one's soul. There were dozens of jade lotuses, but the strange thing was that the monster-slaying sword itself had disappeared. After these jade lotus flowers appeared, they quickly arrived in the sky above the valley. The jade lotus flower petals bloomed and floated down one by one, sparkling like snow. However, the jade lotus flowers that had withered petals did not really lose all of their petals. Instead, after a piece fell, a new piece would immediately condense on the jade lotus flower, and in this way, the petals would continuously fall down. In the blink of an eye, the sky above the valley was covered by countless beautiful jade lotus flower petals. It was so overwhelming that it seemed as if it was a strange snowflake. The lotus flower petals floated down and landed on the fire bowl. Seeing this, The fire bull let out a painful cry. A deep wound appeared on its back. Strands of sword chi continued to wantonly destroy its body. These jade lotus flower petals were actually formed by specially condensed sword chi. They had a strong destructive power. Moreover, the sword chi turned illusory, which greatly increased its lethality. Oh no, could this be the so-called sword technique of the immortal cultivators? It actually has such terrifying power. When Di Shirtian saw this scene, his heart suddenly contracted violently. He thought about the disappearance of the demon-slaying sword. With his wisdom, he immediately guessed that this should be the powerful sword technique of the immortal cultivators. Turning illusions into reality, condensing the sword chi and sword light into substantial jade lotus petals. Such a method was rather terrifying. It had the same effect as Di Shirtian's demonic mist blade that was condensed from demonic chi. Clang! With a thought, the giant demon mist blade in front of him disintegrated and turned back into 7 demon mist blades. 3 of them instantly flew to the firebull's side and quickly danced around it, shattering the sparkling and translucent petals. However, when these petals were destroyed, they still burst forth with tyrannical sword chi and bombarded the demon mist blades. The light on the blades began to dim as they were worn down. However, the petals seemed to be endless, covering the sky and covering the earth as they continuously sprinkled down. It was likely that the demon mist blades would not be able to hold on for long before they were completely worn down. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The petals were abnormally dense, as if it was snowing heavily. The light on the demon mist blades was being worn down at a speed visible to the naked eye. In almost no time, one of the demon mist blades that enveloped Di Shirtian's surroundings was destroyed on the spot by the sword chi that erupted from the petals. This caused a flaw in the defense around him to appear on the spot. The petals followed the trace and entered. Several sparkling and translucent petals quickly fell on Di Shirtian's back. Puff, puff, puff. Amidst the crisp sounds, the edges of the petals were abnormally sharp. They actually easily cut several hideous wounds on Di Shirtian's body that had long been strengthened countless times. Furthermore, the petals melted the moment they entered his body, turning into strands of sword chi that began to wantonly destroy his body. What a terrifying sword technique. I can't go on like this. Although I can condense the demon mist blades again, I can't go on like this. They will still be worn down by these strange petals. I'll waste my own demon chi for nothing and won't be able to reverse the current situation. When Di Shirtian saw this situation, he knew that if he did not have a way to break this strange sword technique, he was afraid that he would really be buried in this seemingly beautiful sea of flowers. It seems that only by using the tiger roar sound wave can I break this terrifying attack in one go. Whoosh! Di Shirtian's mind turned. He already understood that with his current ability, the only thing that could be useful was the tiger roar sound wave, this tyrannical sound wave attack. Immediately, without a trace of hesitation, he fiercely inhaled a breath of air in front of him. His entire, huge body once again increased in size at a speed visible to the naked eye, becoming even more burly and tyrannical. The awe-inspiring tigers might swept out like a tide. The king mark on his forehead was really like a purple flame that pulsated, further accentuating his uniqueness. The tiger roar technique quickly circulated in his body. Waves of demon chi quickly rolled and surged toward his throat. The breath that he swallowed fiercely rushed out of his body. Roar! The tyrannical tiger's roar resounded in the valley. This tiger's roar was even more shocking than before. It was as if, in an instant, countless thunderbolts had struck down in the valley, causing the entire valley to shake violently. The surrounding rocks were shaken to pieces on the spot. The ferocious chi wave swept up bursts of fierce wind. Chapter 53. In the sky, a large number of jade lotus petals were forcibly dispersed by this tyrannical tiger roar. At the same time, ripples of pitch-black ripples visible to the naked eye continuously spread out in all directions with D. Shirtion as the center. Wherever the sound waves passed, snow-white petals were all shattered by the continuous sound waves. Not even the slightest trace of sword chi was left behind. Boom, boom, boom. The power of the sound waves was all-pervasive. More than half of D. Shirtion's demonic chi was poured into it, making it even more powerful. Moreover, the sound waves were endless, wave after wave. In this sea of sound waves, the petals were like rotten wooden rafts. No matter how they struggled, they would still be shattered by the sound waves. This is a good opportunity. Let's take this opportunity to break this strange sword technique. Demonic Mist Blade, fuse, slash. D. Shirtion's body was filled with a dense tyrannical aura. He raised his head and looked at the dozens of jade lotus petals in the sky. He knew that these were the key to breaking the sword technique. Otherwise, even if he could destroy these petals with them around, he could still create an endless supply of petals. Only by destroying these lotus petals could he truly break this sword technique. Clang! At this very moment, with a single thought, he saw the demonic mist blades fusing together again, condensing into a huge crescent moon blade. Under his control, the demonic mist blade drew a pitch-black blade light in front of him, instantly chopping down on the jade lotus. Bang, bang, bang! Under D. Shirtion's full control, the demonic mist blade erupted with its strongest power and cut several lotus petals in half. Then, the sound waves surged and shattered the lotus petals. Explode for me! At this time, Zhong Yunfei's voice suddenly rang out. The jade lotus petals suddenly rushed toward D. Shirtion, one after another, dauntlessly advancing. They completely ignored the sound waves and demonic mist blades and madly rushed toward D. Shirtion. Not good. D. Shirtion's heart sank. A thick layer of demonic chi gushed out from his body and covered his entire body. He quickly controlled the demonic mist blade to destroy the lotus petals one after another. However, it was very difficult to destroy these lotus petals. Moreover, they were rushing toward him. In this short period of time, he could only destroy most of them, but there were still 3 left. He broke through the sound waves obstruction. The lotus petals had already dimmed, but when they got close to him, they suddenly exploded. Suddenly, a large number of lotus petals violently shot out, completely covering D. Shirtion's entire body under the attack. Roar! In an instant, boundless pain that pierced his heart, causing D. Shirtion to let out an even more tyrannical tiger roar. Of incomparable madness in his eyes, all of his demonic chi poured out of his body. The power of the sound waves instantly more than doubled. Kama, senior brother, I can't hold on any longer. A sharp scream rang out in the valley. The cultivator, surnamed Ling's Vajra talisman, had already been destroyed by the sound waves. The sound waves blasted his body, causing blood to flow out from his 7 orifices. His internal organs were shattered by the sound waves. He only had time to let out a cry for help before he died under the sound waves. Junior brother Ling. Zhong Yunfei saw his junior brother die under the sound wave attack, and his expression changed drastically. However, at this time, a pitch-black tiger claw suddenly pierced through the air and heavily bombarded his chest. A jade pendant on his neck shot out a ray of blue light and shattered the tiger claw. Even so, he spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. The jade lotuses were all destroyed, and the demon's slaying sword suddenly appeared in midair. It fell down and landed in front of Zhong Yunfei. Zhong Yunfei looked coldly at D. Shirtion. With a flip of his hand, 2 talismans quickly stuck to his body. A gentle breeze appeared beside him, allowing him to fly into the air. Grabbing the demon-slaying sword, he turned and fled into the distance. Of the 2 talismans, one was a Wind Rider talisman, the other was a Divine Travel talisman. When the 2 were combined, it would allow a person to fly quickly in the air. Zhong Yunfei's personality was incomparably decisive. When he saw that his demon-slaying sword technique had been broken, He was severely injured, and he was hit by the tiger claw again. With such injuries, he definitely could not continue fighting. His junior brother had been killed. There was no point in staying here any longer. The only way to have a chance to turn the tables was to preserve his strength. Therefore, when he saw that the situation was hopeless, he made a prompt decision to withdraw and leave. Demon Tiger, just you wait. Sooner or later, I, Zhong Yunfei, will kill you with my demon-slaying sword. My junior brother's death must be avenged. I, Zhong Yunfei, swear that I will kill all demons in the world. Zhong Yunfei's speed was very fast. Di Shitian watched him leave, but did not chase. He still stood majestically in the valley. When he could no longer see the other party, the demon aura that covered his body quickly retracted. Zhong Yunfei, I, Di Shitian, will remember you. Sakura's body went soft, and his huge tiger body laid on the ground on the spot. Looking at his body, there were large and small wounds all over his body. The number of wounds was simply a ghastly sight. Zhong Yunfei's strength was too strong, and that sword technique was a powerful attack that he had never seen before. The jade lotus exploded beside him, and countless petals fell on his body, adding countless wounds on the spot. There was also a large amount of sword chi that rushed into his body. If it wasn't for the fact that his body had been strengthened countless times, this attack would have easily shattered his body and cut him into countless pieces. However, he relied on his own willpower to support himself and did not fall. At the critical moment, he used the last of his demon aura to attack with his tiger claw. This was why Zhong Yunfei could not see through him and finally retreated in anger. However, there was no way that this hatred could be resolved. An immortal cultivator is actually so strong. He is far stronger than the few I have encountered before. His cultivation is obviously not higher than mine, but he can injure me to this extent. Di Shitian thought to himself. Although he was surprised, he was not afraid. Instead, it aroused a strong fighting spirit. He also understood that perhaps this was the true genius and expert among the immortal cultivators. He was much stronger than ordinary immortal cultivators. I didn't expect that I would be seriously injured again when I had just recovered. This injury is even more serious than before. The most troublesome thing is that the sword aura that is wantonly destroying my body. He did not regret his actions this time. For him, what was done. Since he had decided to do it, there was no room for regret. As a demon in this life, he was destined to stand on the opposite side of the immortal cultivators. There was no room for compromise. Moreover, this time, while killing an immortal cultivator, he could also take in a subordinate and increase the strength of his side. Huanyo was now lying on the ground, gasping for breath. His body was dripping with blood. It was obvious that his injuries were not light. Ow! A high-pitched eagle cry sounded in the sky above his head. A gust of wind blew and a huge vulture descended from the sky. It quickly landed in front of Di Shitian. King, you're injured. Are you okay? Kong saw Di Shitian covered with terrible wounds and showed a trace of worry in his eyes. Unknowingly, Di Shitian had become their backbone. They really treated him as their king. Kong, my injuries are not serious for the time being. Immediately inform Yuan Tian and the others to bring all the clansmen forward and come and meet me. I just need to rest for a while, and I will be able to move again. Di Shitian looked at Kong and quickly ordered, Yes, king. Although Kong looked at him worriedly, he still took the order seriously. He immediately rose into the sky and informed Bai Yu and the others. If he wanted to heal, the essence refined from blood was undoubtedly the best kind of power. Previously, he was injured because he ate the flesh of the Centipede King. That was why he could quickly heal his injuries in a short time and make great progress in his demonic power. It was obvious that the importance of blood for demon cultivators was self-evident. Thinking of blood, Di Shitian's eyes suddenly fell on the dead body of the cultivator not far away. With his sharp eyes, he naturally saw that there was also a storage bag beside the cultivator. In my previous life, I read a lot of myths and legends. Usually, monsters like to eat humans the most. They treat humans as food. Eating humans as food is better than eating animals. It can increase one's cultivation by a lot. Sakra thought in his mind. All along, he had been reincarnated as a human into a tiger. Although he had long known his identity and situation, it was impossible to have a complete relationship with humans. As the saying goes, humans eat animals and hunt animals. Animals eat humans, and it was the same. It could be considered as a matter of course. If humans can eat animals, why can't animals eat humans? He had understood this long ago. However, the thoughts of his previous life still had a deep impact on him. Therefore, he was still a little repulsed by eating humans. This was also why, when he killed people in the Tiger Hill Mountains, he left the corpses to buy you and the others. A cultivator wants to kill me. Why can't I eat him? In this life, I am a demon. It is natural for me to eat humans. Today, I will eat him. The body of an immortal cultivator must contain an enormous amount of spiritual essence. Dishirtian's eyes became determined. He came to the cultivator's corpse, grabbed the storage bag, and put it aside. He opened his big tiger mouth and took a deep breath. Huff! In an instant, the huge tiger mouth produced a strong suction force. It enveloped the cultivator's corpse and directly pulled it into the mouth. The whole person was directly swallowed by him. The moment he swallowed, he felt a little nauseous. However, he still managed to suppress this feeling with his strong willpower. Lying on the ground, he quickly closed his eyes and silently began to operate the tiger roaring technique. The dried-up demon power in his body was slowly recovering. The surrounding power of heaven and earth quickly poured into his body through the meridians and countless pores. As Xiao Chan refined the food he swallowed, a huge amount of heat quickly rose in his body. Please vote. Please add. If you have votes, please help me. I'm already working hard to update. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.